Greetings from the Alexandrina Council. Let's meet the driving force behind the Alexandrina community. Mayor Keith Parks, Deputy Mayor Councillor Margaret Gardner, West Ward, Councillor Bill Coomans, Councillor Lou Nicholson, Councillor Michael Scott, North Ward, Councillor Craig Maidment, Councillor Sue Miller, Councillor Christy Thornton, South Ward, Councillor Margaret Gardner, Councillor Millie Livingston, and finally, Councillor Peter Oliver.
Good afternoon. Welcome to our council meeting of the 16th of September 2024. An audio recording of the meeting will be made for minute-taking purposes, and it will last the length of the open meeting. The audio file will be available on the council website after the draft minutes have been circulated. I'd like to welcome our elected members. We have no apologies or leave of absence. Councillor Scott, unfortunately, has been caught up moving some cattle to market, which he couldn't get out of, but he will be here. He's running a bit late. It has something to do with the drought that we're going into at the moment, which is really bad. You want me to shout? I'd like to also welcome Acting Chief Executive Officer Tash Hunt, General Manager Community Stacey Batson, General Manager Infrastructure Alan Harvey, Acting General Manager Corporate Gus Rankin, and some of our other staff who are here as required. Would you please stand for the acknowledgement of country and the local government prayer? The Alexandrina Council and its communities acknowledge the Ngarrindjeri, Paramount and Kaurna people as the traditional custodians of the lands and waters of our council district. Almighty God, we humbly beseech Thee to grant Thy blessing upon the works of this council. Guide us in our deliberations for the advancement and the true welfare of the people of this district. Thank you. Just to remind members, if your council member has an interest in a matter which is before council at this meeting, you're asked to disclose the interest of the council and provide full and accurate details of the relevant interest at the beginning of the meeting, and members are also reminded they must also declare their interest and provide details at the time the relevant item arises for consideration. Councillor Maidment had advised there's a general conflict of interest at item 8.7 regarding the Strathalbyn Oval Controlling Committee. So next, item 1 is the confirmation of the minutes of our council meeting of the 19th of August 2024 and the special council meeting of the 9th of September 2024. We move that they be received. Move Councillor Maidment. Seconded. Councillor Nicholson, sorry. Any discussion relating to those minutes? If not, I will put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. Item 2 is adjourned debate. 2.1 is regarding a public toilet master plan consultation. Tash will just talk a little bit about that first.
Thank you, members. Just as a refresher, this is an adjourned item, so what that means is the matter picks up where we were. So we have a resolution before you which has been moved and seconded, and the councillors that have spoken to it are Michael Scott and Councillor Sue Miller. We have had a few pieces of the puzzle moving since you considered this back in May. So you will see further down on your agenda papers on page 10, there's actually a revised recommendation for you to consider, and this is because some updates were made to the public toilet management plan, so there is a new document presented. But as an adjourned item, we do have to present you the original one. The council may, because the debate picks up where it left off, you do need to deal with it in that way. One of the ways you could do with it is put it to the vote where you are, and if council wanted to let it lapse, then we can pick up with the revised recommendation if people were comfortable in dealing with it that way. But that is up to the council, and I'll hand it back to the Mayor to take off.
Thanks, Tash. So we have, as Tash said, Councillor Gardner has moved it, Councillor Oliver has seconded it, Councillor Scott and Councillor Miller have spoken to it. So is there any discussion on it? If not, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? You're in favour of it going ahead as a, or not? I think you might be confused. I'm not trying to tell you anybody how to vote, but what we've got is, what we're talking about right now is the one that was adjourned. So if that lapses, then we can go to the new recommendation based on what's happened since. I think there's a bit of confusion there. So we'll start with the one that was adjourned. So all those in favour? Against? That's carried. So that was a waste of time. I should have mentioned this earlier. We've got a very, very big agenda this evening. We've got a lot of people in the gallery because of some items of great interest. Can we please keep any discussion to what's necessary and move through? That way we might be able to get this adjourned. Otherwise we won't finish the agenda this evening. Item 3 is presentations and deputations. 3.1 is regarding the proposed skate park for Middleton. We've got Vicki Centofanti here to make a deputation. Vicki, do you need more than 5 minutes?
Yes, thank you.
So 10 minutes? Yeah. That's okay with everybody? Yes or not? If you don't put your hand up, I don't know. Right, so that's fine, thank you.
Mayor Parks, councillors, thank you for the opportunity to listen to my concerns about the skate park. My name is Vicki Centofanti. I'm a resident of Mill Terrace. I am a surfer and skater. My job is a surf coach and aquatics instructor. Excuse me a minute, I've not really used these before. So we chose to live in Mill Terrace because of its beautiful environment. We are here to explain why we don't support the skate park proposal for Mill Terrace on the basis of child safety, road planning, environmental considerations, inconsistent with good planning practices, given the growth strategy is out for consultation and the site has no room for expansion for future growth. Council should build an asset that is going to cater for the future, not just a few now. Back to basics. We want Council to also look at flood mitigation first. This proposal of a skate park is so important to our community and the other 30 who have turned up at the Town and Foreshore meeting. We are concerned that the letter from Middleton Town and Foreshore representing so many people is only counted as one submission. Many of the submissions for the skate park were driven through a letter going out to schools, with most of those submissions not knowing where the site is, just that they want a skate park. We do not object against a skate park. We just object against the site. For those of you who don't know the topography, here's a map. The yellow part is the main Port Elliot Road. You can see there, Mill Terrace is actually in the middle of those two green spaces. This is just showing where the creek and the ravine are. So this is our home. This is where we live. We bought our home to enjoy a quiet coastal lifestyle, and in summer it gets very crowded and busy. Most of the parking is taken up by surfers, beach goers and dog walkers. Now those parking can come right past where that park is and where the encounter bike path and cyclists come out. It is a dead-end street. We are not against this skate park. I just need to say that again. We just think it's in the wrong site. and we believe the evidence supports our concerns. Currently, Mill Terrace is the pathway from Ellinsford Terrace and the caravan park for mums, dads, kids and dogs. Last year, Council put large boulders extending the line along Mill Terrace to stop drivers from doing U-turns in front of cyclists and pedestrians. This is just a picture to show you how people walk down our street because we don't have footpaths. Greenery and wildlife. There has been no environmental impact plan or consideration. Abbott Reserve and adjacent Mill Terrace Reserve form an oasis of green in a growing suburbia. In the current growth strategy, this no-through road is not considered to the growth of Middleton, and we believe that council should build these amenities in a more accessible strategic area. These are just some pictures of birds. These two areas didn't always have as much beautiful green space as they have now and trees, and these are some of the birds that are now nesting in the area. These are just 3 of probably 20 breeds that we could name. Traffic issues. Imagine all the traffic being driven off the main road. What road improvements does council have for Mindacowie Terrace and Ellinsford Terrace to enable people to drive to the skate park? Earlier this year, councillors were concerned about car safety at Bristow Smith Reserve. Children's safety. Compare the parking and visibility in Mill Terrace. Not all cars have reversing mirrors. We have a Flurio Road Safety Committee. Have they been consulted about the safety issues of this area? This is already an extremely dangerous street. We just don't want a child killed in front of our yard, would you? Flood considerations, November 22. While you were celebrating being elected, we were cleaning up. Some claims, including in some of Mill Terrace, not even finalised today. These are pictures, I apologise. These are pictures of Ellinsford Terrace and the main thoroughfare to Mill Terrace. This just shows how quickly things can get blocked. We were actually on the flood, kept as an island for 3 days. Couldn't get cars in or out. This water all came down Mill Terrace to the creek. The bridge here, this is just a picture of the bridge. Now the bridge here has been replaced 4 times in a decade, so it wasn't just the day of the flood. This is the main access to the skate park according to the concept plan. This is what skaters say about their skate parks. Oops, apologies. What have I done? Sorry, I don't know what I've done. Does it go back? Thank you. What skaters say? The biggest complaint is about the wind. Little kids struggle because of big kids. This was the whole reason for the idea that was raised in the first place. The original idea was about Middleton, not a statewide tourist attraction. Even the consultants say it's a lot of money to get it wrong. Let's work together to get it right in the first place. More traffic issues. There is no footpath currently and nor in the concept plan, so children and families will continue to walk on the road. A large SUV this morning had real difficulty turning around with hardly any traffic at all. How is this going to be managed? The blind corner from Ellinsford Terrace to Mill Terrace, I have had multiple near misses, and I'm a local, so I go as slow as possible. Strangers come flying down that street. We know that from the Steam Ranger accidents. Finally, we have an Encounter Bikeway. Currently, council is looking at creating a major tourist attraction with the Encounter Bikeway. Cyclists will now have to cross even more traffic. On page 82 of the report, I have lots of issues with the report. However, I'll just bring up one. The proposed skate park site has no circulation or access. Have I done it right? Sorry, I've done it again. Circulation or access externally or internally. North of Mill Terrace is a shared bicycle path and south are public toilets. Car parking is located south and to the southeast at Middleton Beach, which I showed you before. If that is cut off by the bridge, and it's also a path, it is made of gravel. It is steep and slippery, not preferred by families. Connecting to these areas, pedestrian zones, circulation and access must form a key driver in the project development. Now that's come out of this summary. Oh, sorry, I'll have to read from here because I've messed it up, I think. Oh, the concept plans says it only affects one resident, but it actually affects the whole street. Given that other parks have a history of kids lighting fires, and Alexandrina has precedents of fires being lit on the Encounter Bikeway Bridge at Kyneton, this poorly accessed road is putting the community at risk due to emergency service vehicles having difficulty getting in. Cars struggle to turn around. How will they access the closest fire hydrant being 200 metres away at number 17? A fire getting away here will quickly be captured by prevailing southerlies, and Middleton CFS only has 9 volunteers. A house can go in 20 minutes, although my firefighting husband has told me 7. So, to sum it up, we feel the report is weighted to people who don't know the site and are not concerned about our children and their safety and don't care about Middleton and its future. We are asking you to look at a different site and get Middleton safe first. As Mayor Parks says on the Alexandrian Council website, it's a beautiful region. It's really important that we keep it as beautiful as it is. That's why people want to live here, and we agree, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Vicki. Are there any questions? Councillor Coomans.
Vicki, I've just got a couple of questions if I could.
Yes.
And thanks for your presentation. Were you or the association asked about the other potential sites? There's 9 sites in all being considered. Were you asked your opinions on the other sites at all?
So I've been reading through some of the sites. I did find the red parts of it very hard to read. I actually had to wear glasses and use a magnifying glass on all media platforms. That's what I've got in here, but I don't have half an hour to go through what I think is some faulty points in this report. Some of the sites that we had suggested also haven't come up in the report. I also understand that we have to expand our area, and could we perhaps maybe do something small and extend the current little park there, and then when we actually have a good plan, let's get a really good park going that's in an appropriate area, out of the wind and safe for everybody. And it would be really good. Most of the parks around Australia actually have an extension. They have beautiful playgrounds next to them, or they're part of a field. So many parents, so it's really great to have a skate park and a play area, because not their whole family will skate. So that's a consideration I'd like thought through too.
And if I could, yeah. What was your understanding when, I think it was Evan Bailey?
Yes.
He chose Mill Terrace.
Yes.
Did he provide any other options, or was that the only option?
At the time, Evan came forward because he has small children, and he found what I believe is the Goolwa Park intimidating to his young children. I get that. I've seen many skate parks around Australia travelling. So he was looking for a small beginner's skate park, a safe environment for his kids. So that's how it all started. Now, I have no idea how this turned into a major Taj Mahal. We all agreed, because we are caring to our community, and considered, yes, there are more young children in the area now. So yes, let's have a little beginner's thing. I've no idea how it got to this massive thing. It's just gotten out of control.
So the final one then, if it was this big,
yes,
would you perhaps carefully select a particular site that you prefer?
I think at the moment it's been rushed so quickly, and these are the types of things that need to have some time. It would be really great maybe to work together and find a site that works for everybody, and a site that will last our community for years and years to come. So there are some sites There are some in the plan, and some of the red things, I do have, the spots where they've said, I don't think it's a good spot. Here's an example in here. It actually says that Mill Terrace on the east side has access to toilets, but if you walk across the road, apparently Abbott Reserve does not. So that we're talking 10 metres, and one has a toilet and one doesn't. So there are lots of issues in here. I'd love to have time to go through.
Councillor Nicholson, did you have one?
Thank you, and thank you so much, Vicki, for presenting to us. I know that the public consultation has been an opportunity for so many people to give feedback, which is really important for these decisions. I just wondered, just based on a comment that you just made around sort of how, no idea how it turned into the Taj Mahal, I just wondered if you did notice in the report the sort of explanation of how it went from the village conversations and a petition from Evan Bailey and the community saying, a beginner skate park would be really great in this area and for our region as a whole. But then did you see the breakdown of that, it went to a focus group, when we approved the concept plan, and now it's come to public consultation, and this is all a part of developing. So, I feel like the answer is there to your question, how did it get this big?
Yes, so I have asked this on many occasions, and it has got bigger because it was to support lots of skaters. However, a lot of us are concerned with the traffic of Mill Terrace. So a small one we thought was going to be an extension of Abbott would just have walkers going to it with little children. So we were like, well, yes, that's great. But now that it's big and it's actually stating it's going to be the skate park of the south, we're now bringing Goolwa, Hindmarsh Island, Victor Harbour, traffic from afar that street can't handle, and that's our concerns. I'm almost crying. Only the other day, actually it was probably a few months ago, a young lady came from the caravan park. She was skating. She tried to cut across the corner and she fell while my car came around and the board went under my car. I had to swerve. It's the most sickening thing. My daughter was in the car. It's not the first time many things and I've had to scream my brakes on, and I only do 25 to 30 k's around that corner. Do you think that anyone else would understand coming into that street? All they see is Google. That's how you get there and away they go. They don't understand the dangers of that street. They are my concerns. They are the children that we are trying to protect. And that's why I said I don't want to see a child pass away or be severely injured because of these issues. And they need to be dealt with. We don't have footpaths. We are dealing with cyclists. And in the 16 years I've been there, it's getting busier and busier and busier. We used to have empty car parks where houses weren't built. Now they'd take up to 20 cars for surfers. They've now gone. Those 20 to 60 cars have to go somewhere when the surf is really good, and beachgoers want to use the thing. Now we know that it gets busy in summer and we can handle that for only so long, and that's another issue. We actually have, all those residents have the recreational activities of everyone in the community in our backyard. Now adding this big park will bring so much traffic, we will have no relief or quiet time in our front or backyard. So that's another concern as well.
Vicki,
sorry, I'm just emotional from that.
Yeah, I can understand that. Thank you, Vicki, for your presentation. We've run out of time on this one.
Yep.
But do appreciate your time and what you've done and what you've brought to us.
Thank you very much. Thanks for your time.
So 3.2 is also regarding the proposed skate park at Middleton, and we have Evan Bailey to make a deputation regarding that. Now, Evan, do you need more than 5 minutes?
I'll say yes. I'm trying to be considerate and keep it under 5, but in case of questions, it might go to 10. So,
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Yep. Is that okay with everybody? Thank you.
Beautiful. Good evening, and thank you, councillors and Mayor Parks, for this opportunity to speak in favour of the proposed Middleton skate park and its location. I firmly believe this development will be a valuable asset to our community, and I would like to address 4 key points that demonstrate its potential for success. But firstly, I would like to speak to the disappointment I feel from being targeted by people in our community that believe I have divided the people of Middleton.
Excuse me, Evan. If you make comments from the gallery, I will ask you to leave. No comments from the gallery at all. Thank you very much. Be respectful for those who are here, making presentations and also here to listen. Thank you.
Thanks, Mayor Parks. I appreciate that. I've been accused of being dishonest and my character judged from following appropriate steps as outlined by council to initiate a community project. To them, I would like to say my idea of a beginner type and size park has always been my intention. However, as plainly demonstrated by the overwhelming majority of positive support this has been given, this is not the Evan Bailey skate park. The size and scale of the skate park is a result of the feedback from people of Middleton and the greater Alexandrina area, who will use the space just as they come to enjoy the waves and the wonderful place our town is. According to the Council's community engagement outcomes, 85% of the 681 respondents voted yes to a skate park, with 71% of those people supporting the proposed location. 83% of respondents who identified themselves as Middleton residents support this project, with 64% supporting the location and 73% supporting of the design. I ask these people to observe these facts and acknowledge that this is not my voice alone. I have simply started with an idea and taken the steps asked of me by council, so in future, please don't take out your frustration on me or my family in the community. Point number 1, location is a key to the success of any community asset. For a skate park to thrive, its placement must be central and accessible. The proposed location is in a well-trafficked area, which increases its likelihood of regular use and community engagement. Assets like skate parks depend on visibility to ensure they are well utilised, maintained and safe. A secluded location could lead to neglect and potential misuse by vandals. The proposed location keeps it in the public eye, helping ensure its success and sustainability. Point number 2, safety and visibility for families. For any recreational facility, especially one where children and teenagers will spend time, safety is paramount. The proposed location provides excellent line of sight, meaning parents and families can feel comfortable knowing they can easily keep an eye on their children. This not only encourages more families to use the park, but also deters unwanted behaviour as previously mentioned. Ensuring the skate park remains a visible and safe environment will foster trust and comfort within the community. Point number 3, skateboarding is an integral part of our town's surf culture. Our town has a deep-rooted identity in surf culture which has shaped its character and appeal for both residents and visitors. Skateboarding, being an extension of surf culture, plays a vital role in fostering the same sense of freedom, creativity and community that surfing does. Middleton resident Adam Cox recently established the Middleton Grommets Board Riders Club, which aims to encourage children as young as 3 and as old as 12 to give surfing a go, making friends and building confidence in the water. This club, established this year, has already surpassed 50 kids who regularly meet along with a great number of parents every Friday afternoon for waves and good times. You may see some of these kids here tonight in their club shirts. By building this skate park, we are not just adding a recreational facility, but fostering this next generation of happy and healthy kids who are outdoors and off devices. It is reinforcing and celebrating the cultural heritage that defines our town. The skate park would serve as a natural complement to the surf lifestyle that is at the heart of the community, further cementing our town as a hub for board sports and coastal recreation. Point number 4, the initial excitement will settle. It is natural to expect the skate park to attract a lot of attention when it first opens, and there may be a brief period of higher activity. However, as with any development, the level of interest will normalise over time. Once the novelty wears off, usage will stabilise and the skate park will become a regular, well-integrated part of the community. Concerns about it being too busy will diminish as the park becomes a routine fixture in local life. I, like many in our community, want to see the continual improvement of our town but ensure we can make it as safe as possible for all. I share the concern of those opposed to this project in identifying potential risks the location may cause in increased traffic on Mill Terrace and the blind corner of Mill and Ellensford Terrace. I believe the success of the skate park is integral through identifying and mitigating these risks to our community, including the necessary consideration and infrastructure to avoid harm, I believe is vital. In conclusion, the proposed skate park will be a resounding success for our community, thanks to its ideal location, existing infrastructure and commitment to creating a safe, visible space for all to enjoy. Finally, in the words of skateboarding dual Olympian gold medalist Keegan Palmer speaking to Channel 7 from the local park in Elanora, Queensland, I owe my success to the local park. We had nothing before this was built. I want to inspire teenagers with a dream like I once was, and we need more parks like this with ramps and bowls so kids can grow and get better. Thank you.
Thanks, Evan. Any questions? Councillor Gardner.
Thank you, Evan. I'm quite aware of how important a skate park is. It's not for me. I think I'm a bit long in the tooth. But if the location, and I understand the location is a serious problem for a lot of people. I was there yesterday and nearly got blown away. The wind from the south can become incredibly strong. But I'm wondering if this council decides that the location is not the right one, will you be able to cope with that if we can find another location that people are happier with?
Yes, I will cope. However, I do ask that, like the point I raised, is that please don't put us out of sight, out of mind. I feel like wherever the success of an asset like this really does hinge on a prominent location, something that ties in the culture of surfing and skateboarding and marries them together. I feel like wherever you do put it, someone will have a problem with where it's placed. Someone will speak out to say, I don't want it there, it's too close to me. And the risk there then is that we put it out the back. And, you know, I feel like that's a missed opportunity to make something fantastic for this town and the area. So I hope that, does that answers your question in terms of alternative locations. I that's something that I did come to town and foreshore with to say, I am open to different locations, and through the expertise of Convic, who have done this up 10 times through this state and other states in Australia. It's in their literature, it's in their documentation that if you're going to spend money, make sure the location is somewhere where it's going to be used and not neglected.
Any further questions? Councillor Freemans.
Thanks, Evan, for your presentation. I just wanted to ask you, what was the basis for selecting Mill Terrace, and are you aware of the other possible locations, and have you any thoughts on any of those?
I saw Mill Terrace as, again, a fantastic opportunity to tie together surfing and skateboarding, which has a natural marriage together in that the views are fantastic. You can, look down the coast, you've got the surfers catching waves off the point. I saw it as, I certainly don't agree with pristine grassland. It's quite a neglected spot, and like Vicki said, it does have the concrete rocks there. So and the topography of it is quite flat, so it lends itself nicely to how a skate park is built. So that was I think I came with the idea of that being a preference based on that. But fully understanding that, you know, I'm not going to throw my toys out the pram if we don't get it. Like, it was just an idea, and one I thought that was really good and would support all these points that I made. I have seen in the report the alternative locations and, you know, reasons as to why they're not as good. However, you know, I think the community that are supporting this, it's not an all or nothing scenario. We are definitely open to ideas, just with Mill Terrace being our first preference. So.
Councillor Oliver, just we're running out of time, so quick, thanks.
Thank you. And just to continue that line, do you have a specific alternate site?
No, I don't.
I've got 20 seconds left. Anybody, a quick question? No? Councillor Coombs, another one?
Well, look, we might be spending $1 million on something like this. It certainly deserves a bit more consideration than what we've got now. But I was going to ask you, you were aware that there was a flood back in November 22 and it inundated all of that area. Is that something that you're concerned about?
Yeah, but I think I stand here before you like I spoke to, that a resident with an idea that gets the ball rolling. I'm not, you know, of course it concerns me. I don't want to see damage done. I only want to see the continual improvement of our community. But I feel like that's in the hands of someone's expertise that could look at that and provide an answer to your question that is a little bit more informed than putting me on the spot about being concerned about floods.
Thanks very much. That's the end. Thanks very much, Evan. Thanks for your time again. Thank you. 3.3 is a presentation regarding a proposal for planting at the Ratalang Basham Beach Conservation Reserve. We have Annie Basham here to make a deputation regarding that. Annie, you ready to speak to that? And do you need more than 5 minutes?
Yes, please.
So that's it. Won't bother asking that. So I have to ask, are you those in favour of the extra time? Can they make it so I can see them? Thank you. That's fine. Go ahead, Annie.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Councillors, staff, gallery, and thanks to Maureen Hatch, who is also very concerned about prevention and mitigation of fires since 1995, for coming here tonight as well. This has appeared in the minutes of council and the committee for years. The council has never owned that land. It is leased by the state government. The central photo here is not a state forest with a 100-year lease, as stated on page 64 of the master plan for Port Elliot. It is leased to the council by the state government. The agenda, page 493 of your agenda, the correct spelling for Freeman Knob is N-O-B and has been ever since the whaling days of the 1830s. And it's in the nomenclature books of South Australia, and it's also on the RAO maps. The committee complained that $90,000 was too costly to repair the committee's lack of maintenance on this building. Council is responsible for 3 historic buildings on behalf of the state government. This building is yet to be restored because of the lack of maintenance by the committee. And it was actually asked at a committee meeting and a council meeting, how far into the long term will the committee go in spending money to maintain these buildings? After the next bushfire, it will be even more costly to repair. You can see in this plan the trees to remove the panoramic views from Basham Beach Road and the railway crossing. And the top corner, top part of the plan, the trees are to be planted around the stables and the dairy, so the roots will destroy the walls in exactly the same process that was used on the poultry shed. Next one. 10 metre tall trees and 1.5 metre tall grasses planted on this land here will remove forever the sweeping views to the Coorong from the steam ranger clients and from the millions of tourists who only see this view when they travel on the main road between Port Elliot and Middleton. All plants over 1 metre tall will ensure that no one will ever see those sweeping views ever again. And it's incomprehensible that these trees and grasses are considered more important than the scenic beauty of the area. The weeds in the park. This is the false caper or euphorbia and South African veld grass on the headland. In the sandhills, in the flat paddock, you can eradicate the euphorbia here and plant native grasses in that flatland area there. You can also eradicate the veld grass and plant native grasses here. And you can plant native grasses here in the caravan park extension instead of the bushes and trees. The committee meeting of the 21st of March 2024 stated in 1994 a native grass meadow was instigated in another part of the reserve, so it has been done and it can be done again. Photos of the Bucklands Park community fire on the 30th of December 2020. There's 3 of those, that's right, and there should be another one as well. That's it, thank you. The deliberate planting of a fire hazard of trees and grasses puts at risk lives and property, including these neighbours on the north side of the railway line. And that fire was started by Steam Ranger. It will be like living with a time bomb all of every summer, and residents will be terrified every time the steam train goes past, the trees that are going to be up to 10 metres tall and the grasses that are going to be up to 1.5 metres tall. Councillor Scott and I will remember and will never forget the 1959 fire. All that saved Pleasant Bank's homestead and the buildings was the 7.5 hectares in the proposal. In 1959, those 7.5 hectares were grazed as low as possible as bushfire protection. While the farm burned at each end, the buildings were saved. Over Easter, I counted 2,742 visitors to the park. These people have not been consulted. Dramatically altering the reserve deserves public consultation. There have been no complaints about the farming of the land, except by 2 committee members who do not want European heritage or farming on their reserve. The proposal is a ruse to remove the Basham families from the land. Councillors, you were never given the opportunity to choose between keeping the European farming land or replacing it with a total fire hazard. This is what the land around Pleasant Banks will look like for all of summer, every summer, if the proposal goes ahead to plant grasses and trees around Pleasant Banks. Norman Waterhouse lawyer stated in her report, the applicant is quite understandably concerned about the fire risk posed by the planting of vegetation on the land and around the Pleasant Banks homestead. She also said the applicant's concern, particularly in relation to the fire risk, are, in our view, legitimately held. This appears to be a major concern for the applicant, and understandably so. The direction in the 2018 master plan to be mindful of the potential fire risk to Pleasant Banks homestead is being completely ignored. These 3 spaces, caravan park, the copper mine and the flat paddock, can be used to plant native grasses without removing the European farming land. And the committee already has 86% of the reserve. And these trees are blocking the the drivers' view of the trains as they come out of the exit from the Port Elliot end of the caravan park. And these trees also obstruct people's views of the train at the Basham Beach crossing. It is beyond understanding why 7.5 hectares of grasses and trees are considered more important than lives and property. It defies logic that trees and grasses are more important than the CFS recommended bushfire buffer zones between native vegetation and urban areas. It is unbelievable that trees and grasses are considered more important than the automatic bushfire buffer zone provided by the farming from October to May every year at no cost to council. Residents moved to Middleton to escape the fire threats in the Adelaide Hills. They are now threatened by trees and grasses to be planted right next to the Middleton township, which will never be slashed at any time during the year. People living north of the Roa line are very concerned about bringing the bushfire hazard right to their doorstep. Climate Control of Australia have predicted longer, hotter summers. The fire season is now extending into spring and autumn, and there are more extreme and catastrophic fire days predicted. So landscape design needs to match fire-prone areas and residential areas. Fires travel faster uphill. The 10-metre tall trees and 1.5 metre tall grasses to be planted are all uphill, forcing a fire front faster towards the historic buildings and lives and the Middleton township. Climate change is the reason to reduce the bushfire risk, not to increase it. If the committee was really serious about climate change, they would be encouraging farming the land to provide an automatic bushfire buffer zone to protect people and the environment. This stubble provides much less fire fuel than 1.5 metre tall grasses will. Now is the time to return the land to grazing and cropping as is legally designated in the master plan. 1, to provide a buffer zone.
Annie, you're running out of time.
Yep.
Can you sum it up?
I've got four lines to go. To provide a buffer zone to protect lives and property, to retain sweeping coastal views to the millions of tourists, to preserve the heritage buildings under the care and control of council, and to protect the lives and properties of the people living adjacent to the reserve and the townships of Middleton and Port Elliot. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Councillor Maidment.
Thanks, Annie, for that presentation. You'll remember back in September of last year when the grazing licence was revoked, and part of that recommendation at the time was that the council's compliance team would review the maintenance plans, and fire prevention considered around Pleasant Banks. Can you inform us how that's been going? Because I did see somewhere that there was some mitigation against fire risk I think in March. Is that the only time that that's been done? And
there was nothing done about any mitigation, any fire breaks, no slashing from the 1st of January right through until autumn, the 13th of March. No fire breaks down Basham Beach Road, no fire breaks where the Steam Ranger train goes, no fire breaks around Pleasant Banks property, none whatsoever provided by council, despite about 20 mentions in the minutes that it would be done. And nothing happened until the 13th of March.
Any further questions? So thanks very much, Annie. Thanks for your presentation again.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. 3.4 is a deputation regarding the Lakeside Goolwa Code Amendment. We have Andy Ward, the Managing Director of Lakeside Goolwa, and Catherine Orford, who is a Senior Associate of Acoustics. So welcome, and do you need more than 5 minutes?
We only need 5 minutes each.
So that's 10 minutes?
Possible?
Okay.
10 minutes,
so that'll be 10 minutes, so we're happy with that? Yep. Okay. Yes, that's fine, thank you.
No worries. Thanks for having us. So we're Lakeside Goolwa, which is a business we've had down at in Goolwa North there. The first residents moved in down in Goolwa North there in 2014, and then since then the village has gone really, really well. The demand's been amazing. We finished all the homes in 2022, and at that point we started looking where we could potentially expand to. And then in 2022, that's when we acquired some land next door, adjacent to the existing site, and that's where we're looking to expand the village to now. We're a village which is a residential park, which is the lifestyle of choice these days for over 50s around the country. Sorry, people are moving away from the traditional retirement villages and going much more to lifestyle villages like ours. There's over 900 in the country, and people are looking for the high quality resort style facilities that we provide, and then we obviously maintain all those as well for people. It's now time where we've got to the point where we're looking to expand. We sold 158 homes over the first 8 years in the village. We've still got massive demand for more homes, and that's why we're looking to expand. We've got over 1,000 people on our database. We're getting 30 to 40 inquiries every week for people looking to move into our village, but we don't have anything to sell them, provide for them for the homes. So the adjacent land's the natural place for us to expand to. It will provide a seamless continuation of the current village. It will transform some unused and unproductive land next door. The new facilities will offer an unrivaled lifestyle to the new residents. We'll maintain the similar housing style and facades to the current village, so it's a seamless continuation of the village, and we'll have heavily landscaped boundaries to preserve the country feel around the local area. So our current village is outlined in the blue line, and then the filled in blue section is the area we're looking to move into with the code amendment. And you can see it joins, the two sites join on the southern point of that photo. So there's huge benefits to the local community, and a lot of these came through in the public consultation. We were really happy to see that we had approaching 90% of the community in support for our code amendment, which was fantastic. And a lot of these points were brought up by those people. The expansion will be a $90 million expansion to the local area. It obviously creates lots of job opportunities for tradespeople and other people in the local community. We've always used a local builder and local trades to support the local businesses in the local Fleurieu Peninsula. By providing 100 and something new homes, however many we end up doing, it will free up other homes for people during a housing crisis. The new residents will be, obviously they spend money in the local area, bringing more money to the local businesses. So there's an economic benefit to the community. Our residents are very active in the local community as well. They volunteer in lots of local things. As well as being big participants in local bowls clubs, local golf clubs, and they volunteer in the Steam Ranger, the Lions Club, things like that. And we're big sponsors of local community clubs as well. The golf club, bowling club, the aquatic, the Aquafest, as well as one of the Dragon Boat clubs as well. So yes, there's a big benefit to the local community of this expansion. I'll pass over to Catherine, and we'll talk through the community engagement.
Thanks, Andy. I'll take your glasses. Mayor, councillors, thanks for the opportunity to speak again about the code amendment. We were here a few months ago prior to the engagement period commencing. That public consultation period ended on the 31st of July. And Council now has the opportunity to provide their own submission that will form part of the package of documents that we submit to the Minister for Planning to close out the code amendment. Andy sort of touched on this already, but just a quick refresher. The map up there with the hashed area is the land that we're proposing to rezone from rural living to residential park zone, so that will facilitate the expansion of that existing Lakeside Goolwa residential park, with that residential park zone being specifically for the type of development that is already existing in the Lakeside Goolwa facility. The key engagement activities that were undertaken, there's the plan similar to Andy's, just that part that in that southern portion there is the conservation zone, so we're not planning, although that is within the same ownership of Lakeside Goolwa, we're not proposing to rezone that portion of land, so that will remain as conservation. Sorry, that wasn't quite the slide I was expecting. I think one's dropped off. Doesn't matter, I'll talk about it. The key engagement activities that were undertaken included obviously the draft code amendment was published on the Plan SA website with links to the online submissions portal. We did a direct mail out to 410 residents, including a fact sheet, direct mail out to key agencies and stakeholders. We had face-to-face briefings with the members for Finnis and Mayo. We had briefings with yourselves and council administration. We had meetings with the Ramanjeri Heritage Association, and we had 2 community drop-in sessions, information sessions at Lakeside Goolwa. So as a result of the engagement, we had 397 written submissions, so it was a really good engagement. We had 5 submissions from agencies, none objecting to the code amendment. We had 1 from the Department for Environment and Water, just requesting that the River Murray floodplain protection area overlay be reviewed and potentially removed from the affected area. We had several articles you might have seen published in the Advertiser, Flerio Sun and the Southern Argus. And we're also aware of a community session that was held by residents. So the main takeaways from the community engagement, overall we had an excellent response to the engagement activities, strong community support. I think you mentioned 90, I think it was 85% support. We had lots of support from local businesses and the construction and development industry. We had no objections, as I said, raised by agencies and the key stakeholders, and obviously there were some concerns from the local community. In terms of positives, Andy touched on some of these. Lots of people were supportive of providing additional housing for retirees that helps free up housing for downsizers, or by downsizers for families to move in. The location is a logical expansion of the Lakeside Goolwa residential park. It's contiguous with the existing facility. It's also on some underutilised land, and it's not of high ecological value. Also a lot of support was given for the provision of additional affordable housing for older people, and also provides additional housing during our current housing shortage crisis. In terms of negatives that we heard during the consultation, there was concern about the density of housing, a general lack of infrastructure in the area, including roads, services, community services, some concern about the impact on the rural character and amenity, potential impact on the natural environment and wetland, and potential increased bushfire risk, and there were some concerns about what the impacts would be during the construction period. A lot of these matters we addressed within the code amendment as part of the investigations, and the report that's attached to the agenda addresses those, so I won't repeat all that was said in there because I'm sure you've read it. Once we've received council's submission, we'll go into more detail about how those particular issues will be addressed, and that will form part of the report back to the Minister for his consideration. The South Coast, I think I had the map up there. Since the consultation period for our code amendment, the South Coast Growth Strategy the draft South Coast Growth Strategy was released by Council, which aims to help Council plan for its future needs of the growing community. We note that the Lakeside Goolwa expansion land is within the Phase 1 growth area that you can see up on that plan, which is growth for the next 15 years, with the blue area being the Phase 2 15 to 30 year growth.
So obviously the affected area and that surrounding rural living land is identified as being within that phase 1 area, and the intensification of that rural living zone is flagged with smaller lot sizes to be potentially allowed, and also assumes the provision of up to 200 dwellings. As you can see there, that's paged straight out of the growth strategy. So obviously we are supportive of that growth strategy and how it aligns with the proposed code amendment.
Can you sort of sum up, Catherine?
I can. I've just got 2 more points to make. The report by the Council Administration raises a couple of issues that we just wanted to touch on. One is the bushfire and interface management. The report suggests a 25-metre buffer. We're suggesting that for bushfire setback, 15 metres is all that's required, and you can landscape within that 15 metres as long as it meets certain requirements for managing bushfire. And also we'd say that a concept plan is probably not the best way to impose a bushfire buffer, because those conditions can change over time depending on how vegetation is managed. And the second point is in relation to traffic generation rates. Our generation rates by our traffic consultant were less than Council's engineers have suggested. Ours have been adopted based on surveys that were undertaken outside the existing facility, plus an update to the RTA's traffic guide to generate traffic generating development. So there are a couple of things that we'll be looking to, I guess, look further into and address as part of our submission back to the Minister. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there any questions? No questions? Councillor Nicholson, sorry.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I just noticed again that you mentioned the sponsorship of some of our local clubs, which is wonderful, and we do have very active, wonderful communities here with a significant number of older residents, which is, you know, something we love about our communities. But I suppose with a growing number of people in that sort of retirement age, we also need a growing number of people to support that ageing population, GPs, dentists, audiologists, all those sorts of people and needs of our communities grow with our growing population. So I wondered, in the sort of list of clubs that you're sponsoring, if you'd consider sponsoring some of the younger sort of sporting clubs as well, because a lot of our, working families have kids, and that is definitely something that we need to attract those skills down here. From Adelaide, because we do, as we grow, we need to grow across our population.
Yeah, no, we're always looking for good sponsorship opportunities. Yeah, so yeah, more than welcome to look into any of those that that you can suggest.
Thank you.
Any further questions? No. So, Catherine and Andy, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Item 4 is petitions. There are none. Item 5 is questions with notice. 5.1, a question from Councillor Miller regarding capital works program and operating budget opportunities. 5.2 is from Councillor Miller regarding recreational vehicle RV scoping study for the North Ward. 5.3 is from Councillor Miller regarding service reviews progress update. 5.4 is from Councillor Miller regarding the Goolwa Recreation Grounds management, and the questions and the answers to them are in the agenda. Item 6 is questions without notice. Are there any questions without notice? Councillor Maidment.
Just the one, and I've been asked by some people to ask of the General Manager of Infrastructure. Is there a plausible reason why mounds of dirt at the rear of the cemetery reserve at Strathalbyn, which have been there for over 20 years and sculptured by the teenagers of the area for a small BMX facility, were bulldozed by what residents are saying was done by the Fun Police?
Andy, can you answer that?
Yeah. Through the Mayor, they were removed because of access and maintenance of that area to allow our teams to do that as efficiently as possible. With them in place, it became very challenging to do so.
Any other questions without notice. Councillor Gardner.
In 2006, Council resolved to change the designated use of Customs House from community usage to commercial or other usage. This means Council is not obliged to consult with community on the sale of Customs House. With a renewed interest in this building, should Council consider consulting with community before any decision is made for a potential sale of the building and the land that it is on?
Through the Mayor, Council, when making any decisions, can opt to do consultation or not. Just because it's required or not required doesn't mean we don't need to do it. That would be a decision of our Council to direct us. And I imagine likely if there's any reports on that matter, we need to consider the confidential nature of any commercial part of those conversations and then how we'll progress that within our community.
Any further? Councillor Scott.
Yes, I have two questions, Your Worship. Firstly, I ask of the staff, when a person comes in, which they're quite entitled to do, and ask for a 270 report, an inquiry, are those people or persons informed of the financial implication that flows therefrom?
Sure, through the Mayor. Council has a legislative responsibility to undertake the Section 270 reviews. The costs to do those are never necessarily known. It completely depends on the complexities of the matter, the amount of documents produced. So we can't, I would say it would be very hard to inform a person of that cost up front. What we do generally is if they do come in and there's a conversation between our governance team, we would initially try and deal with complaints under our complaints policy and then escalate it that way. But if someone requests a 270 review, we have responsibilities to undertake them.
Thank you. And the second thing is in relation to the Mount Compass Goolwa Road. It is very heartening to hear this week that a considerable amount of money is being allocated for rural roads, and the Mount Compass Goolwa Road has been identified as one of those roads. My question is, can the relevant staff, work closely with the Department of Infrastructure and Transport to make sure we get the best value out of that money? And why I say that is they may have some preconceived ideas about what, with more guardrails or something like that, which does not affect the pavement surface or some of the other things that we require. And so I was hoping that the relevant staff could really drill down on what we need and the urgency of it. And I cite the slow vehicle turnout on Adelaide Hill.
We've got the question, thank you. We don't need to debate it.
I'll
you able to comment on that? Or sure, sorry.
Thank you. Council can definitely contact the state government department responsible for that. We would have obviously limited powers to negotiate that. Sometimes there is a delay with us knowing details about projects, but I'm sure the team will proactively approach it on regard to that exact matter.
Thank you. Any further questions? That was Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Worship. I do have a couple of questions on different topics. I just wanted to go back to the public toilets plan, and on page 10 of that report, I just want to clarify, is the $15,000 design for the Strathalbyn Cemetery toilet in the budget or is it out of the budget? Because my understanding is that it's in there and it hasn't been removed by a resolution of council.
Through the Mayor, I might defer this matter to our General Manager of Infrastructure. I think he's across that one.
The $15,000 that was put up originally and as was endorsed tonight was not previously endorsed when it was put up back in May. On that basis, it never actually made it into the budget. The administration did put it in because it was never voted in or asked to be considered by council, and no council member actually put it up as something to be debated at that point. However, there is now a resolution that we will act upon, which is the one that we discussed, or you discussed tonight, which we will work through, which does have that $15,000 in it.
Sorry, subsequent question, Your Worship. So, on page 10 of the agenda, it talks about that it was Sugars Beach was removed, Chapman toilets were removed, but there's no resolution removing that. So I'm not 100% certain from that answer, is it in or is it out? Because there's no resolution that removed it. There was a resolution, there was a budget that was consulted on, and I asked at the 24th of June meeting, I asked it at the 8th of July information session, and the answers I got was that it was in the draft budget, and it's in the appendix of this master plan. So I'm just trying, and I did send an email in, but I didn't get an answer. Is it in, will the design happen in 24-25 for the cemetery toilets at Strathalbyn? $15,000.
Through the Mayor, I did send you a response to your email. In that I advised that I had, technically it wasn't removed, that's absolutely correct, but it also had not been put forward for consideration, so it wasn't in the budget that was being considered at that time. However, tonight you resolved to move forward with the 15,000, which we put into a report, which will come back to you in the next couple of months around the quarterly budget review and additional costs that may be coming from resolutions of council. So in answer to your question, technically now it's in the budget, and you'll have a time to debate that when that report was brought to you.
Any further questions, Councillor Miller?
Thank you, Your Worship. When was, or is there, a weed, vermin, pest and rabbit problem in Ratalang? When was the community last consulted on anything that happens at Ratalang? And if European farming heritage is referenced throughout the plan, what areas of the park will honour and acknowledge European farming heritage? Because that's in the plan.
I think we'll take that question on notice, thank you, for the next meeting.
Any further? Councillor Coomans.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Parks. This is on the same item on the Public Toilet Master Plan, and unfortunately I thought we would get to the last recommended motion, but it sort of slipped through before I was able to make any comments. My question is in relation to discussions I've been having with the General Manager Infrastructure and the previous Manager Infrastructure in relation to the public toilets on the Mount Compass Rec Park and the abutting Goolwa, the Burgess Oval. And we've been having discussions about perhaps putting some toilets on Burgess Oval because the cost of the rec park would be less than what was in the budget. Can those discussions now continue, or does the public master plan prohibit us talking any more about that?
Through the Chair, it's not really relevant to talk to her on this matter, but if you want to bring a motion forward, we could bring that forward. I might defer to the General Manager of Infrastructure, who has been working on the Public Toilet Master Plan and the project, to see if there's anything else he'd like to add.
Through the Mayor, yes, we have been talking about it, and the toilet that's now going in at the Mount Compass Rec site does actually accommodate within the bounds of the service levels under that public toilet master or management plan, does actually bring Burgess Oval into that area. So there would be no need to provide another public toilet facility at Burgess Oval on that basis.
Just a subsequent question then, if I could, Mayor Parks. The original budget was $400,000 for the rec park. What will be the cost of the current toilets proposed there?
So through the Mayor, I'll take that on notice and bring that back to you. But as we have talked about, the costs of that toilet have come in under budget. And we've spoken about the possibility of improving accessibility between Burgess and the Mount Compass Rec, which is what we're investigating at the moment.
Are there any further questions, Councillor Miller?
Just on the answer to that question then, if there's a budget allocation for toilets, but then you're going to use it for roads access, is that what I understood, or is that moving between asset classes, or?
Any budget adjustments would be brought to you through our quarterly budget review and have to be dealt with in that manner.
Councillor Nicholson.
Thank you, Your Worship. In a similar vein to Councillor Coomans, I had been in discussions with the administration regarding design and repair of the Middleton Arts and Crafts public toilets, and I'm just wondering if the decision earlier this evening will potentially change that project moving forward this year.
Through the Mayor, no. The budget has been set for the renewal of buildings as an asset class, which includes public toilets. Those are moving ahead for this year. From a renewal perspective, and obviously the expansion items that were taken out during the budget deliberations.
Any further questions? No, so we'll move on to item 7, notice of motion. 7.1 is a motion from Councillor Oliver regarding service level and cost structure benchmarking. You wish to move it and speak to it?
Yes, please. Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, as an organisation, how good are we? How do we compare? What are we best at and what can we be better at? How do we continuously improve? Benchmarking is a strategic tool to measure and enhance our operations compared to others. It will help us plan a continuous path for improvement to enhance our service to the community while boosting our efficiency. Members, I commend to you this motion, and I'd like to say that it's only asking for a report for you to consider further. Thank you.
So is there a seconder? Councillor Nicholson. Any discussion? Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Worship. I support the intent of this, but I think the timing is wrong. This is something I think that could be considered in February when we have the ESCOSA assessment of our financial sustainability. I think this is a conversation that would be better had then, and with our new CEO. At the 18th of December briefing session, during the savings and efficiencies discussion, I made reference to a performance excellence program that Council participated in 2019. It was a joint collaboration between LG Professionals and PricewaterhouseCoopers, and it was about benchmarking and metric gathering of councils across the state. There's also the Local Government Grants Commission reports. There's lots of information I think that we could already examine, and there's the Councils in Focus website that does exactly benchmark councils. I think the risk is all communities are different, and it makes it really hard to, you could benchmark us with another council, but their community's expectations and what is considered important to that community is going to look very different to ours. So you set up an administration that delivers on the community plan, which we're about to review towards the end of this year, and it's an item on this agenda. So whilst I absolutely agree with the intent of what Councillor Oliver is proposing, I can't support it for that reason, because I think there's enough information out there. It's hard to compare apples and oranges, and I think the timing is wrong for this one. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Councillor Nicholson.
Thank you. We know in this chamber that Alexandrina Council and our ratepayers are facing significant financial challenges. There have been a number of motions put forward in this chamber to consider how we are going to move forward through our long-term financial plan and keep the rates down and the pressure on our ratepayers down. This is crucially important to all of our ratepayers and communities throughout Alexandrina. if we keep putting things off and wait for after the next election, after the ESCOSA review, we're not going to get anywhere. We do need to be more aggressive in looking for ways to meet the financial pressures and stop passing the costs on to our ratepayers. Our ratepayers have ongoing needs. We do need to continue to deliver somehow. We've already seen that we've had to, under pressure, add things to our budget that we just went through. This isn't going to stop. There will always be financial pressures, and if we keep putting off all of the ideas to get the to look at novel ways around this issue, we're just going to keep going up and up and up in our rates. So, you know, I think that we just need to be bold and start supporting some of these ideas.
So, is there any further discussion? Councillor Oliver, do you wish to sum up? No, you want to reply? No. So I'll put the motion to you. All those in favour? Against? That is carried. Go to item 8, which is administration reports. 8.1 is the Middleton Skatepark community engagement outcome. Now there are 4 recommendations and we will do them individually. So first recommendation 1, is there a mover for that? Move, Councillor Nicholson. You want to speak to it?
Thank you.
Yeah.
From a concept at the Village Conversations to a petition and a deputation, the idea of a skate park at Middleton has turned from a regular topic of conversation amongst local families to a potential project for council. And an incredible 681 people gave us feedback through the public consultation process. We can see that this report has captured the enthusiasm of so many of our local residents. It is relevant and reflective of the aspirations of our community. A skate park is not just for children, young people and families. As mentioned before, young people and families have skills in our region that support our whole population. The feedback we have received is important and highly valued. I have spent hours reading through all of the submissions, every single one. I've met with residents, I've taken phone calls, I've had a number of direct emails, and I've also discussed this within the community. There is strong support, but I want to assure those in our community who have concerns or oppose the concept that your feedback has been deeply considered. I believe that we do have an opportunity to consider how we can get the greatest outcome for the most number of residents. So I move that we receive and note the submissions, and I look forward to further discussion.
So do we have a seconder for that? Councillor Oliver? Any discussion? Councillor Scott, are you putting your hand up? Thank you.
Your Worship, this I can only describe this as similar to someone wanting a Shetland pony and the horse dealer arriving with a Clydesdale. This is has got, to me, has just taken off like a bushfire, and I think that we've got to do a whole lot more consideration with this before we can start going down to recommendation 2, 3 or 4. I was at the meeting when the proposer of it discussed it all with us, explained, as he did tonight to a certain extent. And I thought it was great that there was a little bit of money tucked away in the A2040 budget that we could proceed with this and get a plan drawn. Now, somewhere along the line, I don't know whether Convict got the wrong end of the stick or whatever, but they've come back with something about 10 times bigger than was ever suggested at the said Middleton meeting, which I think the Middleton Town and Foreshore group, as a group, generally accepted as quite a good idea, and we're happy to support it in principle. What's come back is just a far cry from what was suggested. And I can understand the concerns of residents, some of whom may have been at the meeting, who, like me, was expecting a fairly compact and straightforward design, have got the shock of having this great, huge, serious structure plonked down on that long, I take that long strip of land leading to the sea. I personally think that we need to go back to Convict. We are paying them to do this, and I think if we are paying them, they do what we ask. And if we want a lower level, or call it what you will, sort of skate park, well then we don't pay them until they provide us with a plan for that. To come back with some great thing that's heading towards, dare I suggest, an Olympic level thing, may not be, but it's certainly substantial, is a gross misrepresentation of what we were asking for. So we're having all this debate and moving motions and I believe causing quite a lot of angst in the community about something that is not even what we wanted, not even within a bull's roar. And so I'm suggesting that we just, you might say, cool our jets, go back to the drawing board, get them to come up with a plan. They would know what we want if we explain to them, and if Evan or Mr. Bailey puts forward in his terms, because I'm out of my depth with talking about skate parks, but if he were to come up with the sort of proposal, perhaps talks to the Convict people or through with the assistance of the staff and say, this is what we want. Because, and then we can come back with it and go to the look at Middleton and see where it can go. And personally, I think that is a far better way of going about it, and whether, with your guidance, Your Worship, whether I move a supplementary motion to do that, or whether it comes as a formal motion or whatever, but I think that there's nothing to be gained. We've said all along, it's unbudgeted. We won't get money out of the sky just like that, so there's no urgency. In fact, someone even criticised the fact how quickly we'd done it. Well, I thought that was a bit funny when people blame us for being slow moving in council. Once we got things going quickly, and we were still being criticised. So could I take some advice from the staff as to how would be best to do it? Should we just do it as a formal motion, or do you want a separate motion?
You can't do a formal motion. You've just spoken to it for 5 minutes. You're just about run out of time speaking to it, and so you can't move a formal motion.
All right. Well, then I'll leave what I say on the table, and when we go to recommendation 2, 3 and 4, although no, I think I'll move, would if I may move that we return the plans to the drawing board and get Convict to do what we wanted, and bring it back for further consideration in the future.
Yeah, through the chair. So what council directed the administration team to do with Convict was a co-design process. So what has happened is there's been a co-design process done with the community, and that is how the plan has changed into what it is now. It's not a one-person plan or administration plan that's been done hand in hand. Council have absolutely whatever right to resolve what they do next. Right now, all we're doing is receiving and noting that community engagement. So when we move on to the next recommendations, they are just officer recommendations. A council member may move what they see fit at that point in time, but we're just receiving and noting, and I please encourage you to take in that community feedback.
Any further discussion? Councillor Maidman.
Could we amend this to withdraw the proposed location and draft concept for a skate park on Mill Terrace? We acknowledge that we are receiving and noting the community engagement submissions. There's no doubt that the Middleton community want a skate park, but we just don't know where or how or what it's going to look like.
If I may, through the chair, what you're receiving and noting is the consultation that was undertaken, which was that concept plan on that location. So you're not, by the resolution in front of you, you're not supporting it or anything like that?
Okay, that's fine. Thank you for clarification. Question if I might. Does that mean we have to go out to community consultation if this skate park is revised down and at a different location?
What we would do is, depending on what council want to do, I think we will need to consider that. We would consider our public consultation policy, and also I imagine if you wanted to change location or the design, it would be a good idea to undertake that community engagement so we make sure we get this right.
Councillor Gardner.
I'm well aware that the skate park is wanted in Middleton, and people are quite passionate about having this skate park. I went to Mill Terrace yesterday afternoon and stood on a resident's balcony having a look at where the proposed skate park could be, and thought about how I would like to look at 80 metres of concrete prior to seeing the sea and the beach. And the thought of that whole spit being covered in concrete with a little creek down in the ravine filled me with utter horror. This afternoon I got a photo of the ravine with a kangaroo in it. So there are native animals located in that area, and while it looks wild and woolly, that spit is just the beautiful forefront of looking out to the sea at Middleton. It's a beautiful area. It's not a place for a skate park. I could not think of anything worse than having that whole spit covered in concrete. The other thing that is really concerning about that area is that it is windy. It was quite windy yesterday, and to be honest, the southerlies and the westerlies whip across there. It's really unsuitable for little children. I could just see them being blown clean off their skateboards. So while I recognise that Councillor Nicholson has changed the number one, I'm going to vote clean against it. I don't want it at all.
Councillor Nicholson didn't change anything at all. She just moved the recommendation as it is. So is there any further discussion? Councillor Oliver.
Thank you, Mayor. I support the concept of the skate park, including the expanded functionality. In fact, I don't think it goes far enough. I think we have an opportunity to build a world-class facility that will draw people to our region. I do, though, acknowledge I think it's in the wrong spot. And where it is now, the area does not provide for future growth. What happens next? You know, more boxes, more tricks, more stunts. What about a pump track? What about the playground to go next to it? So I wholeheartedly support it, but I think the community has driven, and the feedback is we need to do better. And as a consequence, it no longer fits where we initially thought. And so I'd like to see us revisit the location exercise and the scoping. Thank you.
So is there any further discussion? Councillor Coomans.
Mayor Parks, we are looking at recommendation one only, are we not? So all we're doing is noting and receiving the community engagement submissions. What people are talking about comes up in recommendation 3, which hasn't been moved yet. Recommendation 2 requires some discussion. So all we're doing at this stage is recommendation 1. And I think that's what the acting CEO is trying to tell us. So let's deal with that first, and then get into the nitty-gritty of the location and the analysis, which I've got some comments on.
So is any further discussion? Councillor Nicholson, do you wish to write a reply? Yep.
Thank you so much. as Councillor Cooman said, we're simply receiving and noting the community engagement submissions, and I just want to restate the value and importance of this community engagement. I remember being at Middleton Town and Foreshore Association when Evan Bailey presented his idea there as well. I think it was during the petition, and I remember very much the concept at that stage being, and Evan Bailey pushing for a beginner style skate park. With all due respect to my fellow West Ward councillor, Councillor Scott, when we have comments like, we want a lower level skate park, it's not a West Ward councillor's skate park, it's not the Evan Bailey skate park, it's not the Middleton Town and Foreshore Association skate park, it is a community skate park, and we have gone out to the community to ask what they want. I remember Evan Bailey being asked at Middleton Town and Foreshore, what will the skate park look like? Where will it be? And he answered, he would like the community to be involved in that, and that's exactly what we've done. There had to be a focus group to develop a concept at all. That concept has now gone out for community consultation, and we are receiving the feedback right now. All of the decisions that we make from this point on will be with this feedback in mind. So I just want to state how important it is. I think we've all taken a lot of time to go through these submissions that were provided to us and considered the feedback, and we've got a number of decisions to come. Thank you.
That ends the discussion on recommendation 1, so I'll put that to you. All those in favour? Against? It's carried. So now we go to recommendation 2, and I'll just make it quite clear what we're doing is receiving the analysis. That's all. We're not putting it in Mill Terrace, we're just receiving the document that's analysing it. So there's no point telling us it should be on the moon, that comes later. So is there a mover for that? Councillor Miller. And is there a seconder? Councillor Scott. Is there any discussion? No. Councillor Coomans.
I do have some discussion on this because I think the analysis that's been presented to us is not right. I looked at the Mindacari Terrace, and when you look at the reds and the blues, the first one is in relation to car parking, and it says there is no car parking. Well, the reason there is no car parking is because we don't own it yet. But in the foreseeable future we will, and when you consider it's over 4,000 square metres and the skate park requires only 1,900, there's going to be plenty of room for off-street parking, not on-street like the other sites. It'll be off-street parking. There's probably going to be enough room to put a playground. There's going to be enough room to put barbecues, shelters and seats. So I think number 1, which is in red, is incorrect. If we looked at number 6, which talks about the residents that abut the sites, when you look at Mindacari, you've got a hotel on one corner, there's a railway line on the other side, there's a hotel, a tavern, on the other side, and the railway line has got quite a bit of buffer. So in terms of housing, the only housing that of significance will be the ones that will be part of the new development. And given there'll be 1,200 square metre blocks, the housing numbers will be very minimal. So that one should be in blue as well. We looked at the environmental matters. It says unknown as this is private property. Well, when it becomes owned by council, the environmental will also make that, because it's no different to Mill Terrace, so that too will be a blue, which means it's okay. There's currently no water connected. Well, across the road is a pub, there's Mindacari Road. I'm sure there's water mains all over the place there, so I'm not sure that that's an issue either. And then it talks about footpaths. Well, right across the road is a concrete footpath that runs right through the town. So in terms of access to it, I don't see any issues with that. So I think if this I'm not prepared to accept the analysis as it is. That needs to be changed, and I think it probably rates around about 7.5 to an 8. And then you look at the preferred site, or the only site that was surveyed was Mill Terrace. The only thing against it is no seating. Well, it's only a minor one, but it doesn't have any on-site parking. It's on, well, I'll talk about that later in terms of the actual location. But if we're going to talk about the analysis, let's make it a true analysis and not as it is at the moment. So I'd like to see that changed. And that needs to go as part of the recommendation, that the analysis be reassessed to actuality.
Through the Mayor, I just might refer to the General Manager of Infrastructure just on that analysis.
Through the Mayor, I wouldn't mind if Matt would mind just clarifying for us the ownership of the property that you're referring to. I think that may help us.
Through the Chair, the land that is located adjacent to Mindacowie is under private ownership as it stands at the moment. It's currently owned by the Craven Group, who also own Oakford Homes. We are yet to receive their final submission in terms of what areas would be set aside for reserves within that, but I am also mindful that a significant portion of land will be required for stormwater flows through the land. So it's difficult at this stage to be able to commit to whether it would even be appropriate for a skate park.
So the question is, if I could ask it as a question, do we expect that development to go ahead within the next 2 years? Because it's going to take that long to get any grants.
Through the Chair, I will pass over to our Group Manager, but I think that might be irrelevant because this is going to be a long-term investment for Council.
Through the Chair, I think it's highly likely that the development will be commenced in the next 12 to 18 months.
Any further discussion?
So I did move an amendment to that.
No, you didn't.
I indicated.
You spoke to it.
And I indicated
Richard, you'd like to get it changed.
That it would need to be amended.
So it won't be an amendment, it will be a variation.
Okay, I'll take it.
We can allow it, but you've run out of time. We've got 10 seconds to go. So what do you want to add to it as a variation?
The variation is that the analysis be reassessed. Specifically in relation to Mindacowie Terrace.
How you want as part of that? Yeah, we do that yet. We'll get to that. So we need Councillor Miller as the mover. Do you support that change?
No, I don't. I think that's substantially changing what I've moved, and in the past.
Yep. Yes or no?
No, because of that. Only because of that, it's substantially changing.
Yep. So it's not changed. So that ends the discussion. So they're talking recommendation 2. So I'll put that to you. All those in favour? Against? That's carried. So we go to recommendation 3 now, which is relating to the chosen location on Mill Terrace due to feedback from the community. So is there a mover for that? No? No mover? So that will lapse through want of a mover.
Well, what about a change in the recommendation then?
It's lapsed through want of a mover. So recommendation 4 with the 3 dot points is there. think I agree with Tasha saying, and I agree, it's really hard to even consider 4 because we've come to 3, and it relies on 3 being accepted to be able to progress to 4. So that I think the opportunity is there for a member to move a notice of motion outlining what you would like to see at a future meeting, not now. Okay. So you got some questions?
I'd like to move that we...
No, you can't move anything. We're not. You can't move anything. It's closed. It's done. It's been voted on. We move it, and there's no point going to the next. It's been lapsed. We now can't go to the next one because it relies on a flow. So that's why I'm saying it's an opportunity now for some consideration to it, and a new motion be put to the next meeting of council whenever, based on what may be desired to go next, and then we can start from there. But it would have to be, and it can't be. We're not a motion off the floor because it's got the community need to know what's going on. Councillor Livingston, a question?
Is there any reason why we can't amend this current motion to say that we do not approve the draft concept design for a skate park, and that we are bringing it back, so that we do have a motion that we have moved, a recommendation that we have moved? If you could move recommendation 4, and where it says due to the community support, we could say due to the community input, we do not support. Yes, if so, I would like. I would propose a variation to the motion to say that we do not support, we do not approve the draft concept design, and we'll asking for I would like a council information session and a further report to come back to council.
Sure. It is not a motion yet, this is just recommendation, but you can, of course, with this, move your own motion, which is, we can help word that up now for Tanya, but I can understand the sentiment of what you're trying to say. Yes. So what you're wanting to do is move that an information session be held on the concept plan and location?
Yes, so we don't approve the draft concept design.
Yep. And do you want in your motion that you don't approve it?
That we do not, yes.
Yep.
Correct. Thank you.
So we'll get that. That the information session be held to discuss the concept, design and location. And then a further report be brought back to council. Through the mayor, the mover may speak to it.
Yeah, you going to speak to it?
Yes, please. Yeah. So I am proposing this motion. We've heard from the community about their views on both sides. In my view, we do not have the funds in our budget in any event to complete the project, regardless of whether the concept design was supported tonight or not. We have the time to work through the concerns of members of the community, and I think it is important that we take the time to do that. A lot of the times we don't actually have time to make decisions, so we make decisions as we have to, but in this situation we do have the time. I think it is a great proposal for Middleton and a great asset to the community, especially for the children living in Middleton and surrounding towns. However, I do not agree with the site for various reasons, including disturbing a reserve where there is little reserves left along the foreshore. I do want to make a comment. I do not think it is fair to blame Mr. Bailey for causing community divide. I applaud him for his support of the community. and his fellow members, and it is great that we have someone like him in the community that is bringing something like this to council. I'm not satisfied that we have sufficiently investigated alternative sites, as Councillor Coombs also said, and I hope that with this recommendation varied, that we have time to do that and we can bring back some alternative sites for the Chamber to consider.
So is there a seconder for that? Councillor Scott. Is there any discussion? Councillor Nicholson.
Thank you. I think this has been a tricky one to get right on the fly, but this gets pretty close. I would be keen to see further public consultation on the location with the pros and cons presented to the community and asked back from the community on a number of locations rather than just going out with one. I think that would be really beneficial for this project in ensuring that this Chamber and Council are able to really consider the community's feedback on a number of different possible locations. So I think we could discuss that at the information session and work out a way forward. There's no rush with this project. As we know, it's going to be a challenge to find the money. So we do have time to make sure that we're getting it right.
Any further discussion? Councillor Coombs.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Parks. Not exactly what I was looking for, but at least at the information session we can talk about the size and the location. I'm all for a regional skate park. I hate the location, but the part that disappointed me is that the survey that went out only focused on Mill Terrace, and I think we should be recanvassing our community and let them have their say on all 9 sites to see which is the best site to put this. I've already suggested that Minakawi Terrace would be an ideal site once we become the owners, and it could also become a regional facility when you bear in mind that we have 4 other locations at the moment. There's a skate park in Goolwa, and it takes up about 300 square metres. There's one in Port Elliot that only takes up 42. Victor Harbour's got 560, and they're all getting past their use by date. A new one in Mount Compass of about 350 square metres, and if you add all the spaces together, that adds up to about 1,250 square metres. This thing is proposed to be 1,900. So it's obviously not something that you put in the local street that's 1.1 kilometres from the main road, has got no footpaths, and is going to be competing for car spaces during the summertime. That's why I was suggesting the other one, because it's away from the housing. Maybe at the information session we can sort of go through that a bit more, but being mindful that we can't make any decisions. It's just going to be a bit of a talk fest and a few questions, which I don't think is all that productive anyway, but I guess that might be the next step. But we've got quite a few residents who really want us to come to some decision tonight, and I guess time does allow us to procrastinate a bit more, and I guess that's what we'll do.
Any further discussion? Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Worship, and thank you, Councillor Livingston, for putting this forward. I really think the gallery that was here needed a direction and what the next step would be for this, so I think this is a really important motion. And I just wanted to comment that I also was at the Middleton Town and Foreshore meeting where Mr Bailey presented, and it certainly was nothing like what we've seen tonight. I think we all fell in love with 14-year-old Arissa True in Paris when she was skateboarding, and the commentators who spoke the language I did not understand, but by the end of it I could identify an ollie, a tic-tac, a drop-in, a heel flip and a front side, and I even googled skateboard tricks to try and understand the importance of this to our younger community. I've been contacted by residents who have no issue with a modest park, but the location was the issue and the process that got us here. I think what we've done tonight is very appropriate and measured. I also acknowledge that initiatives like this are probably more for when we are in surplus times and not in this operating deficit that we currently have. And I also think, I'll leave it, I won't seek to change this, but we're developing a recreation, open space and sports strategy. And I really think that if we're going to be serious about our direction and making considered decisions, something like this is absolutely something that should be informed by and informed, so whether it's chicken and egg, that recreation, open space and sports strategy, it just highlights for me the critical need that strategy be developed. So I would like to actually see no decision be made on this until we have that open space and sports strategy, because that'll incorporate location of all recreation and the needs analysis and demands. So this is a really important body of work. I'm glad we've received and noted it. I'm glad we've started the conversation with our community. I'm glad we're having an information session and that we didn't approve what was presented to us. And what Councillor Coombs raised I think is really valid too, and that will be teased out more in the next phase of wherever this goes. But I don't see this now as urgent because we've made this decision not to go ahead with what we've received, but I just can't stress how we need a recreation, open space and sports strategy for our whole area, and the growth that's coming only makes it even more important. So thank you, and I'll be supporting this in its current state. Thanks.
Any further discussion? You wish to have your right of reply? No. So I'll put the recommendation to you. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. Right. So now we can move to 8.2, which is the Milang Local Heritage Code Amendment, consultation, feedback, and there are 2 recommendations there. We'll move them together. If I'm happy to move them together, if somebody wants to. Councillor Oliver. Is there a seconder? Councillor Maidment. Is there any discussion? I'll put the recommendations. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. Okay. Just let me announce it first, then you can do it. 8.3 is the Lakeside Goolwa Code Amendment, and Councillor Livingston, you wish to
declare a general conflict of interest due to my employment, and I'll be leaving the chamber.
So there's a recommendation there before you with 3 top points. Do we have a mover for that? Councillor Miller, you're moving that?
Yes, thank you, Worship.
Talking to it or not? Is there a seconder? Councillor Gardner. Is there any discussion? No, yes, no. Okay, I'll put the recommendations. All those in... Oh. I asked you if you wanted to speak, then you said no. Then you didn't put. Then you put your hand up.
Thank you, Worship. I didn't want to speak.
It just makes it much easier if you put your hand up like that, then I can see it, because when you go like that, I don't know whether you wish to speak or not. So if you wish to speak, you let me know, that's fine. Go ahead.
I was just looking to speak to close the debate, not at the beginning. So thank you. Very quickly, I do think we have to note that this will free up existing houses for people who want to come down here and live near their families. The family home can be for younger generations, and older people can stay near their families. Whether it gets used for that, I don't know, but we do have a responsibility here to address the shortfall in housing in our area. I think it's a great letter for Council's submission, and there'll be a response, I'm sure, from the proponent. So I think this is a really measured and appropriate response. Thank you, and I commend the staff for their response.
That ends the discussion, so I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. Councillor Livingston, come back, please. Yeah. So 8.4 is a strategic land program group 1, beach road closure, community engagement outcomes. There's 2 recommendations. Again, we can move them both together if you wish. Councillor Livingston. Is there a seconder? Councillor Oliver. Is there any discussion? The road's not going anywhere. It's doing exactly where it is. Okay, so we'll put the recommendations to you. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. Some of these reports are long. There you go. 8.5 is the Strategic Land Program Group 1. It's the Braeside Road closure. Again, community engagement outcomes with 2 recommendations, so we move them together. Move Councillor Maidment.
Can I speak to that?
Yep, we certainly can.
This is one of those no-brainers where you have a dead-end road coming into your property. It'd be great to have it amalgamated with the entire property, and as it's in a food protection area, it stops the opportunity to split that land up into smaller lots in that particular area. So I think it should be, we should approve.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Oliver. Any discussion? No, so I'll put the recommendations. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. .6 is the Section 270 review report regarding the Ratalang Basham Beach Conservation Reserve, and there's a recommendation there before you. Move, Councillor Miller.
I'm happy to move recommendation 1, that we receive and note the report. Thank you.
Do we have a seconder for that? Councillor Oliver. Is there any discussion on recommendation .1? Not, I'll put that to you. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. So we go. Are we going to do 2 and 3 together, or are we going to do them separate? We'll do. I'll put 2 and 3 to you anyway. We'll see how we go. Is there a mover for 2 and 3? Move, Councillor Nicholson. Is there a seconder? Councillor Cummins. Is there any discussion? Councillor Miller.
I'd like to move a formal motion, Your Worship. I've emailed it through to administration, and my formal motion is that consideration of this item be adjourned until a period of community consultation of no less than 21 days is undertaken as soon as practicable on the future management, that is, the use, care and control and service levels and community access of the Ratalang Basham Beach Horseshoe Bay Conservation Area, and until the community has been consulted and a report received and noted by council resolution, only essential weed, pest, vermin and fire control and general maintenance of the area be undertaken.
So that's a formal motion. Is there a seconder? Councillor Oliver. So formal motion. I'll put the motion to you. All those in favour? Sorry, let's get it up on the screen so you can read it before you say it. that's the wording for the formal motion. So I'll put the motion to you. All those in favour? Against? That is carried. So we go to 8.7, which is the Strathalbyn Oval Controlling Committee Development Application 24022548-6, new cabins within the Caravan Park. Councillor Maidment, you declare the conflict in this one, I think.
Yeah, I'll declare a general conflict of interest. I'm chairman of the Oval Controlling Committee. I would like to have stayed in the chamber, but I've taken advice since and I'll depart for this particular item.
So that's the item. So we have a recommendation with 2 dot points. Councillor Thornton, you moving it? Councillor Miller, you seconding it? Is there any discussion? Very straightforward. I'll put the recommendation to you. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. Can we get Councillor Maidment back? So 8.8 is the Lions Club of Goolwa Incorporated. A new lease request. There's a recommendation there with 2 dot points. Moved, Councillor Gardner. Yep.
I'm very pleased to support this motion. I've been to the Lions Book Den numerous times and they are absolutely thrilled with their new shed. So they're very happy that council supported them. And their garden is looking great. The whole area is looking very nice now. And yes, I'm really pleased for them because I think they'll do very well in that area.
Second to Councillor Oliver. Any discussion? Councillor Maidment.
Just a question. I'm curious as to why only a 5-year lease. They've been at the other site for a very long time, and I was just wondering why they wouldn't go for 21 years.
Through the chair, this has been obviously a long-term project with the Oval reconstruction, as you may say, the project there. So there's been direct negotiation. This facility has been built specifically for this club. It's good practice to go for a 5-year period initially, so that we can iron out anything that needs to be amended in the lease. The other thing it does is avoid the need for public consultation. If we do longer than 5 years at this point in time, that would trigger needing to do community engagement on the lease, which seems quite inappropriate given this site has been built specifically for the club. So that's been talked about to the club.
Any further discussion? Councillor Livingstone.
I support the lease, but I do have a few further questions in relation to the area. And thank you for your answers to my questions today, Tash. So just to clarify, the area is in red, which is in the agenda. However, my concern is there is currently a gate going onto the court that the proposed area includes where that gate is, but that is the leased area for Lions Club. If the proposed area goes up to the end of the decking where it currently is, there is also a door from the club rooms that are currently there that still get used that will go straight out to the area that is being leased. So I'm just wanting to clarify a few of those things, and then also in relation to any interim maintenance of the club rooms, then how is that going to be dealt with the lease, and if the netball and tennis clubs are required to go on that area.
Sure. I did ask some questions around this one today, and it's my understanding that our projects teams had negotiated with the clubs for access. They were acting on advice that they didn't want pedestrians coming off through the Lions Club area and into the netball football club areas, so there's been a gate added where the netball club rooms meet in that space. I understand what Councillor Livingstone is saying about the access to the courts, and there are some gates. Perhaps I might defer to our Manager of Property and Procurement regarding if there's any opportunities to seek clarity on that, about the access there. One of the other reasons apparently it was negotiated that way, there were some concerns about public safety. So the Lions Club have a roll-up door at the back of their shed, and they didn't want children, say from the netball club, playing in that area where trailers or cars might be backing in and out. But I will ask the Manager of Property and Procurement to elaborate.
So thank you through the Chair. The acting CEO has answered most of those questions anyway, but there was some heavy negotiation done between the projects team and the tennis and the netball club. This was my understanding is, everybody's preferred position. There were concerns about children being able to run down the side of the Lions Club onto Wildman Street, and there were some concerns about people accessing the site without coming through the proper channels, being through the gates and making payments where due. So my understanding is this is a preferred position from the Lions Club, the netball club, the tennis club, and supported by the Oval Committee as well.
I don't have any issues with that, but there is a door that the netball and the tennis club can open and walk straight into a leased area, which is for exclusive use for the Lions Club. So how are we giving exclusive use under a lease if two other organisations can access it at any time?
So through the Chair, there might not be any intent from the netball club to use that door, but the reality is it is a large oval facility, and there will always be some concessions and some common areas as far as being able to access to and from the site. The Lions Club would not want to prevent the site from not operating, so potentially they will make an agreement directly with the netball club as to how they would or wouldn't access that doorway.
Any further discussion? Councillor Miller.
I just have a question. I know the answer to my question about the Goolwa Oval Management Committee lease with council. We have no date of when we're going to get that back to us. I think issues like this, I mean, so now we're going to come to an agreement between the leaseholder here and the tennis club and netball club. We still don't have a lease in place for that whole area with the users, but all these sort of side conversations and decisions are being contemplated or made. So I can't quite, it troubles me a lot as a ratepayer, let alone a council member, that we can't come to an agreement and close off this management agreement with the Oval users. And I know that there's lots of effort going into it. I just think at some point, how much longer is, we're coming up for 2 years on council and we've been talking about this for 2 years. So I know that there's lots of effort and work going into it. I just don't understand why we can't force a decision of some way or another, and how much longer we go on trying to make decisions around all these things but not make decisions, and it really confuses me and troubles me, and I just don't know how much longer we go on forever doing this.
Any further discussion? If not, I will put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? Against? That's carried unanimously. 8.9 is the Middleton Stormwater Management Plan, and there was a recommendation there with 3 dot points. Is there a mover? Councillor Scott. Seconded Councillor Oliver. Is any discussion? Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Worship. I'm not going to repeat what I said about this stormwater management plan at the last council meeting. I'm very comfortable with the wording that it now says consider at the first quarter budget review. I think that's a very sensible approach because, but I am curious to know if there's been some contemplation of where this money is going to come from, because last meeting we endorsed a budget adjustment of $140,000 to our operating deficit without any consideration or acknowledgement of what we're not going to do. Instead, this is talking about consider, which again, I said I'm very comfortable with, and it's not about the need for this to be done or not, but the next item has the same wording for another additional increase to our operating budget. But have we got any insights as to what, if this is now the priority, there must be something that's less priority to the equivalent value. So now we're at $150,000 operating deficit if we do these budget adjustments. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you, Councillor Miller. We have, as the executive, discussed, and while I'm in charge of this agenda, I'm not for adding money to the budget every meeting. It needs to be done at a budget review process. So that's what we've put forward with a few of those recommendations today. Our team are currently working through team by team through our budget review process. So I can't answer your question because they haven't completed that. They're working on finalising the last year's financial results. What there will be a discussion internally about how's everyone tracking with their budgets, is there anything not going to go ahead, are we underspending any areas, and then we would bring that back to council for consideration. If there's not, it would be that if this motion is supported, we may put forward that you increase it, but you would consider that at that point in time. So right now you're saying, is this a valid project? Do you want us to consider that in there? And we'll bring it back.
Just one more question. So the first quarter budget review, is that that'll be coming in November, going to the Audit and Risk Committee first in October? So we'll get a heads up about this, what is being proposed in October for decision making in November. Is that correct?
Through the Mayor, the Audit Committee I think is scheduled around the 25th of October from memory. So the agenda will be out the week before that. So it will probably miss our October council meeting. It's going to go to the Audit Committee late October, and then any of those reports will come through for the November meeting.
So any further discussion? Councillor Scott, you'll close the debate. Nothing else? No, okay, go ahead.
I did speak at length at the last time this came up. I think it was last month meeting or the meeting before. But this is important. Getting all this under control and particularly an approved stormwater management and the stormwater management authority approved plan is important. This is all pretty complicated because we're dealing with several government departments in ownership of the land that is going to need some treatment. When we're only talking $5,000, I mean that's less than the Section 270 cost to us. So I don't think that it's really going to make too much difference to the long-term bottom line, but it's very important that we get this Middleton plan stitched up, sorted out, and be able to move on with. We're starting to do some major works, or get the relevant authorities to do the works that are required to lessen the effects of a similar heavy rainfall event. So I really do commend it to the chamber. Thank you.
That ends the discussion, so I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. .10 is the proposal to develop a high-level Alexandrina community recovery and resilience plan, and there's a recommendation with 3 dot points there. Move Councillor Livingston. Seconded Councillor Oliver. Is there any discussion? Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Worship. Again, I thank the administration for rewording this differently to what it was last time to have consider at the first budget review. I also just wanted to make a comment. about the reference to the Section 270, I don't see that Section 270 cost as having about Ratalang, as having an impact on our operating budget, because that could be funded from the trust fund, and that has no impact on council's operating deficit. So that's the subtle difference here. I do wonder, what is the status of the Middleton town plan? That hasn't been endorsed yet, if I understand it?
Are you talking about the Middleton master plan? No, that has not been approved, and that is yet to come back to council.
Is there any further discussion? I'll put the recommendations. All those in favour? Against? Against or for? Thank you. Carried unanimously. 8.11 is the Freemans Knob Reserve Shelter Replacement, and there's a recommendation there with 3 dot points. Moved Councillor Coomans.
No, what I'm going to ask is that we defer this for 1 month.
Well, sorry, you can't do anything like that until it's been moved and seconded. That'd be a formal motion. So to formal motion, it needs to be required. It requires moving and seconded first.
I'm not moving it. Oh, sorry.
So we'll start again. Now, do we have a mover? Councillor Nicholson. Do you want to speak to it? Yes or no? No. Is there a seconder? Councillor Miller. Is there any discussion? Somebody talk, yes.
Thank you, Worship. I'm going to defer to the advice of administration here in this report, and I am very pleased that if we are going to do something, we're going to not... I just want to clarify, there's no impact on our operating or capital budget here because we're swapping something out for something else. And if that's the case, then I'm very happy to second this. But if it's not the case, then I'm not going to second it.
Through the Mayor, what we're doing is we're substituting a project. So that means the Freeman's Knob work will not get done in this financial year and will be presented in a future year's budget, but we would undertake the urgent work on the shelters.
So, you still speak to it?
Yes, please. Respectfully, that means that it is a variance, it's only a timing difference. So either way, this is extra money and it will be spent within the next year. I'm going to support it myself, but I just want to note that.
Councillor Miller, you've spoken to it. A question?
Yes, just a question. Can we just clarify, are we knocking these down and rebuilding them, or we're just repairing them, the shelters? I just wanted to clarify that.
Through the Mayor, I'm going to defer to the General Manager of Infrastructure to answer this.
If I can ask the team leader of Building and Open Space to come up, please.
Through the Chair. We will be replacing them due to the significant need. They're not structurally sound, so they need to be fully replaced.
Councillor Coomans, you've got a question?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Parks. What I was going to, and I'll foreshadow this as a motion, that I'll ask for this to be deferred until the October meeting to allow for appropriate discussions with the Port Elliot National Trust Group. And apparently they haven't been consulted on this, but they did write a letter to you on the 3rd of September, and
Which I received today. I just let you know that.
Okay. Well, in the letter, and this was written by Paul Taylor, who's the president of the Port Elliot National Trust, and he says the trust is most anxious that these shelters be repaired and retained. They are both of historic and heritage significance and value, and fall within the Port Elliot Heritage Overlay, bounded by Murray Terrace, North Terrace, Rosetta Street, and the coastline at the top of the Strand, over which National Trust takes responsibility. Members of our committee have inspected both structures and found that with relatively minor repairs, both shelters can be kept as both are in relatively good condition. It is our recommendation that on structure 1, a fresh timber or steel post fitted to the back left side when you face it from the gardens would return it to the sound and stable condition. And shelter 2, to sandblast back the metal work supporting the roof and recoating it with fresh anti-corrosion paintwork would preserve it for a considerable period of time. Port Elliot National Trust really value these two shelters, which have been well used over many years and form an important part of the town's heritage and charm. Please engage with us on ways we can achieve this outcome. And I look forward to your reply. So he's asking to have some discussions on it because the National Trust have got a different way of fixing the issues, and that's why I've asked for it to be delayed as a foreshadowed motion to allow the discussions to take place.
Let's discuss the foreshadowed motion when we get to it. Let's get on with what we are at the moment, which is what we've got.
So if this fails, I'll be moving that motion.
That's fine. So we're back to the recommendation with 3 dot points. Is there any discussion? Councillor Scott.
Yes, I haven't had a close inspection, but I have been told a similar story by someone separate from the National Trust. And when I was last there, I certainly didn't form the opinion that all 3 buildings should be blown away and replaced. And with those very old buildings, it's good if we can slot in timbers where necessary and retain the character of that original thing, because the new one, you'll be battling to make it look the same. So I just endorse what Councillor Kermans has said. As I say, I've heard it under separate cover.
Through the chair, I'm just going to defer to a General Manager Infrastructure to talk about the engineering and condition of these.
Through the Mayor, just to reiterate that the structures were actually checked by a structural engineer, so someone who is professionally qualified to undertake those assessments and have deemed them to be structurally unsound. I'll just draw your attention though to the council report, and I think it's on page 496, where it talks about any remedial work to the shelters will aim to preserve as much of the original heritage as possible, with some elements of the original structure potentially retained and reused if possible. So it's absolutely our intention to work with the structure and retain as much or as many of the features that are there as possible, but to ensure that what goes back is a structure that is safe, is preserved, and one that will last for a decent period of time.
Is there any further discussion? Councillor Nicholson.
A couple of questions, Your Worship. Has the National Trust been consulted, or can they be during this process?
Through the Mayor, yes, certainly can be. We haven't done because it's not a prescribed outcome, but certainly we can.
And the second question, I just wanted to confirm on page 494 at the top, just under context, it refers to the obelisk as currently being replaced, but it was my understanding this is being repaired. I just wondered if the wording would be more accurate to be repaired, or is it being replaced?
Through the Mayor, as we're talking technicalities around words, I might want to get that absolutely right. So can I ask for the team leader, Building Stone Space, just come up and clarify that position? Thank you.
Through the chair, can I just confirm that you're talking about the obelisk that is being repaired, so not replaced?
Is there any further discussion? Put the recommendations. All those in favour? Against? It's carried. 8.12 is the road name changes for Goolwa and Hindmarsh Island. There's 2 recommendations there before you. Is there a mover for that? Councillor Livingston. Seconded, Councillor Gardner. Is any discussion? Straightforward, this one. No. I'll put the recommendations. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. That was both, yeah. So 8.13, this is just every year we do this, the short-term dry area application for the Schoolies Festival of 2024 and New Year's Eve. And there is a recommendation with 2 points moved. Councillor Livingston, seconded Councillor Nicholson. Is there any discussion? Not put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. .14 is the Strategic Management Plan Review, Section 122, and there's a recommendation there with 2 dot points. Moved, Councillor Maidment. Seconder, Councillor Livingston. Any discussion? Councillor Crimmins.
Okay. It mentions a project steering committee. What is the purpose and composition of the steering committee?
Through the Mayor, that is an internal working group, so that we currently have 3 different sort of strategic plans going, our long-term plan, our asset management plan, and our community strategic plan. So for us, it's really important that those 3 plans speak to each other. This is our one chance to get them all right, all lined up. So we have an internal working group of so our executive team, along with our CFO, our asset manager, and the key people on that that are making sure we're working together to involve council.
Another question, if I could then. So the way I read the report, it's council members are not involved in compiling any survey, but just receive reports to approve, and if they want to be involved, they have their time in this chamber to do that. So there's going to be some information sessions, and normally information sessions are sort of 95% talking and then a few questions at the end of it, so that there's no real contributions from elected members until it all comes to the council for final decision. Is that the way it's going to operate?
Through the Chair, no. So we actually have a workshop scheduled with council members, which was a request coming out of the initial workshop you had on the strategic plan. So there is one scheduled. It probably just looks like in your calendar an upcoming information session, but there will be another workshop before we pull that together, before the version is done that goes out to consultation. And as always, when the draft plan, it will come to you for decision. Yes, you can consider that at a council meeting. You may like to go into informal to have a robust discussion on that at that time if you wish. But there is a detailed timeline now around this, and there definitely is at least one more hands-on workshop for you.
Is there any further discussion? I'll put the recommendations. All those in favour? Against? That is carried. .15 is a Section 41 Committee of Council review. There are 10 dot points. Hopefully, in the interest of saving time so that we're not here till midnight, because I certainly won't be here till midnight, we'll do them one at a time. So we'll start off with .1 regarding the terms of reference. Is there a mover for them? Councillor Scott. Seconder, Councillor Maidment. Is there any discussion? Councillor Miller.
I just have a question about any of these committees ever done a self-assessment, or if it's likely that they'll ever do a self-assessment exercise.
Through the chair, the list of committees in front of you haven't got mandatory self-assessments to do. It's not to say that we wouldn't in the future if council wanted them to. That's something that we could implement. I wouldn't recommend doing them necessarily annually, but biannually could be an option. But I couldn't tell you, I haven't looked into the history whether they have had them in the past or not, but not in my time being here.
Any further discussion? That one. So I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Sorry. Anyway, go on. Councillor Freemans.
Thank you. In relation to the terms of reference, I did raise a number of questions that I sent to administration, and most of those have been answered. Some of the things that I wanted to discuss was the minutes, the way they are presented at the moment. I looked at the CEO performance management minutes from a few meetings ago, and it basically talks about who was there, the time, all about confidentiality, and there was about one line about what was actually discussed. And I suggested that all of our committees should have some sort of text on what sort of things are being discussed and what sort of options were considered and where it led to before we get to the recommendation. And I think the answer I've got back is that will be looked at. I also suggested that if any of the recommendations were unanimous, that it be written that way. It's important to know that the committee were all on the same page. That will be incorporated. And I also mentioned about non-attendance of members. If they don't provide a apology, then they'll be listed as absent. And I think that's been taken on. The work plans, that's okay. And a couple of other things also is that sometimes a council member has an interest in a particular committee and wants to attend, and that's the answer I've got on that, is that's being looked at, because sometimes there is an interest on what's happening, like the finance and risk management, like to go along to a meeting and just to listen, not participate, and what was the other one? And the other thing on if the presiding member agrees that if a council member does want to, who's not a member of that committee, does want to participate, that's allowed to happen, but they obviously won't have a vote on any of the recommendations. So it allows a bit more flexibility for members. So I've got answers on 90% of that, and some of those are being considered at the moment. Yep, that's about it.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Through the Mayor, may I just clarify a couple of points there? The matter of will the conversation be captured at the meeting is not being addressed through the terms of reference. We are sticking to our code of practice where we would only be capturing the decisions of that committee, so that part's not happening. I'll ask the team leader of governance and risk just to answer the question around if council members can attend but they're not able to participate bulk.
Yep, so through the chair, any section 41 committee meeting is open to the public, which includes council members just the same as a council meeting. So anyone can attend any meeting and observe. If the committee wishes to have some input from someone with expertise in the matter that they're talking about, they can be invited along as subject matter experts to talk to a particular item or report going to the committee, but obviously won't have any voting rights on that matter.
So just to clarify, if I, as not being a member of the Audit Committee, want to say something, if the presiding member agrees, that's okay?
So through the chair, no, you won't be able to participate unless you've been invited to talk to a matter through prior arrangement. It wouldn't be that you'd be able to sit in the gallery and engage in the debate that way, just as somebody here wouldn't be able to.
Councillor Livingston.
Just a quick question in relation to the SA Wooden Boat Festival terms of reference. Are they in the same form as the Section 41 committee amended?
I'll defer that to the team leader. Do you mean the attachment that's in the agenda?
Yeah.
Are they in the same format?
Well, yes, that is the question, because I'm just looking at, when I was looking at them, there was a few things like we spoke about independent chairperson and that type of stuff.
Can I ask the team leader to just talk about maybe briefly just the difference between the committees and the terms of reference?
Yeah, so through the chair, through consultation with each of the Section 41 committees and with the supporting administrative staff who looks after those committees, discussions were had in regards to an independent chair. All chairs will be of an independent nature, even when it's not a separate expression of interest. So it could be that some committees have decided to go out for separate expressions of interest for their chair. So that's completely separate from their committee expressions of interest. Or some have gone for the fact that they would like to just go out for a blanket expressions of interest to their committees, and then at their first committee meeting make a recommendation to council on who they would like to be appointed as their chair. Does that explain that?
But is the proposed terms of reference for that committee as that was the final version? I'm just confirming that's the final version that the committee
yes, that's correct.
Agreed on. Okay.
So any further discussion? Councillor Miller, you got a question or talking to?
No, I do have some questions, and then I think I'll speak at this one.
We're on item 1 of 10. I'll remind everybody.
Yes, but this is important. It's
important. Yes, it is.
Do the same communication protocols that apply to elected members apply to committee members? That is, if we've got a query with administration, we have to send it to a certain email address and be subject to response times. Is that the same for committee members, or do they have unfettered and unscreened access to council staff, which we don't?
I'll defer to our team leader, governance and risk.
Yes, so through the chair, all committee members are encouraged to put all correspondence through to their administrative support person, not to any particular council staff that they feel free to. So yes, it's very similar, but it's through the administration staff rather than through CM support.
Are committee members public officers, and are they subject to the same behavioural standards as those set in legislation for us?
Yeah, again, so through the chair, as committee members, yes, they are seen as public officers. We had that through legal advice and also some recent ICAC and OPI training that was delivered to senior leadership. So yes, they are bound by the same integrity matters that council members are bound by.
And with an ex officio member, are they counted in quorum? And can you just confirm for me if quorum is, in the case of where there's 11 members, 5.5 is half plus 1. So do we go up with and not count the fraction, or do we come down? And is if the mayor's present, does quorum change?
Yep, so through the chair, yes, so as an ex officio member, they're only included when they are at attendance at the meeting. In regards to the quorum and where obviously you've got half a person, it goes down.
Councillor Oliver. Councillor Scott, you'll close the debate.
Thank you, Mayor. Just following on from Councillor Livingston's question about the SA Wooden Boat Festival, I believe that there's an error in the document, and I don't recall the committee changing away from an independent chairperson to one selected from the committee by the committee.
Through the chair, obviously there are only recommendations up there, so if you choose not to accept that one, that's within your right to do so. The notes and feedback that we've received and compiled was what you've seen in your terms of reference.
Any further discussion? Councillor Scott, you want to close it?
I actually had a question if I may, before I speak. I may have the wrong end of the stick here, but just looking at the list at the top, you're adopting the terms of reference for that list. And down under number 7, it says reappoint.
We're not talking about number 7, we're talking about number 1. All right, sorry, well they are related, but I appreciate that. Yeah. So I'm happy to let it go. I'll raise it to number 7. Question, Councillor Freemans, yep.
Look, sorry, Mayor, but this is important. You know, terms of reference under which our committees operate are pretty important. And one of the things that was raised was the quorum. And I've done some research in terms of if a ex officio member attends a meeting, they are counted as part of the quorum. Mm-hmm. That's understood. If they don't attend, then they are not part of the quorum.
That's correct.
But I can't find anywhere in legislation where it actually says that. I know that's the way we've always operated, and other organisations do, but it doesn't. I couldn't find anywhere where it says if they don't attend, it doesn't add to the quorum.
It is actually in the Local Government Act under Section 41.
41.
And I think it's something like 41.7 off the top of my head, or 41.4.
Okay.
Don't quote me on there, but it's definitely talks to an ex officio in Section 41.
Okay. And the other one is sorry, I've lost it. Sorry.
Any further discussion? If not, we're talking about the first dot point at the moment. I'll put that to you. All those in favour? Against? That's carried. Go now to dot point 2. The remover for that. Mover. Councillor Kerman's moving it. Councillor Maidment seconding it. Is there any discussion relating to that one? If not, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. Go to dot point 3. Is there a mover for that? Councillor Gardner. Second, Councillor Maidment. Any discussion relating to dot point 3? Councillor Kermans.
Yeah, sorry. Look, somewhere or other we need to make it absolutely clear to, and I was at a meeting of the Alexandrina Sustainable Agricultural Round Table some little while ago, and we had 3 or 4 members of the gallery who were continually asking questions and then actually putting policy in place as well, when I think we've said that that's not to occur. A gallery sits there and says nothing. Not only that, they were actually sitting at the table of where the discussions are taking place. That should not be allowed to occur, and maybe it needs to be written somewhere to provide some guidance to the presiding member that that doesn't happen.
Sure, through the Mayor. At that point in time, that committee is not established as a Section 41 committee, so it was operating more as like an advisory group. What we've done with this review is actually formalising our committee, so they're set up historically. And it's not only formalising our terms of reference, what we need to do next is provide training to our presiding members and to the committee. So that will be sort of stage 2 of this whole review of our committees.
Any further discussion on 3? I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? Anybody against? Carried unanimously. So we go to dot point 4. Is there a mover for dot point 4? A question?
Thank you, Worship. I think we've got a lot of committees and panels, and I know this is formalising it, and I really appreciate it. I think it's really valuable, especially for the point that Councillor Cooman just raised. I think that's really important. That sets those parameters. But my question is, with Lot 10, is this the future of this committee? You know, once we get the master plan and that the consideration of the business case and that sort of thing, we're going to establish this committee, but it may not actually need to continue. So I just wonder if with this one, we could just maybe hold off thinking about whether this is going to be required or not, because if, depending on what that business case says, it might be that this doesn't apply anymore, and then it's so I don't mind if it gets established because it's already in existence and it's being an administrative requires administration, but I just wondered if maybe we don't do anything with this just until we get that master plan.
Yeah. So through the Mayor, all committees are at the pleasure of council, which means you may choose to wrap up any of these committees at any time by council resolution. You could choose to dissolve them. With this committee as well, it will be reviewed at each election cycle, so we've got approximately 2 years left until council would formally consider that anyway. It is up to council how it deals with that. We're recommending it be established for this point in time, but after the master or the business case and everything comes back, you could change your mind.
So we're talking dot point 4. Is there a mover for that? Councillor Miller, you're moving it? Seconder? Councillor Gardner? Any discussion? I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Okay, it's carried unanimously. Dot point 5. Is there a mover for that one? Councillor Maidman? Seconder? Councillor Coomans? Is there any discussion relating to that one, Councillor Oliver?
Mayor, thank you. I thought the CEO selection panel was a function of the actual CEO performance panel group. No?
2 separate panels. It's just that the members of the selection panel are the same as the CEO.
Okay. Thanks for the clarification.
Panel, but they're 2 separate panels. So any further discussion? Not, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. Dot point 6. Is there a mover for that one? Councillor Scott. Quickly.
There was some comment about it was optional or something like that. I think that these things are important, and I would like to see it preserved in that current form.
Is there a seconder? Councillor Livingston. Any further discussion? Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Worship. Just a separate but related question. So the Heritage Advisory Committee makes recommendations about the Heritage Awards.
Are we talking about the Australia Day Awards?
Yes. So this one is this makes recommendations to council about the awarding of those recipients. Is that the same for the Heritage Awards? That council actually, they'll make that decision? I'm sorry, I should have asked it earlier, but I just want to clarify that.
As you're aware, that committee is not delegated any powers by council. Historically, back for a very long point of time, they have operated in a certain manner, but there have been no training provided to that committee. There hasn't been training provided to the administration staff of that committee. So moving forward, that we would hope that any recommendations on decisions would be brought to council. they'll be provided some training.
Is there any further discussion on dot point 6, Councillor Coomans?
Not so much on this particular one, but we're talking about establishing various committees. If we were looking to establish another one or more, is this the right place to be able to do that?
Yes, you would have to put it on notice and would have to be brought back. To put an additional committee in there, you'd have to, not tonight, you'd have to put it on notice.
Notice of motion?
You say you'd do a notice of motion from, not tonight, you have to put it in, submit it for the next meeting, for it to be included, and anything else you want included. Is there any further discussion? Not, I'll put the recommendation 6. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. So we go to dot point 7. There's a removal for that. Councillor Oliver. Seconder, Councillor Maidman. Is there any discussion on that one? Councillor Scott.
Question, if I may, and that's why I was trying to do it earlier, that it's under C in number 1 is Ratalang Basham Beach thing, and 7 we reappoint all the committee members and name them all except for Ratalang. Now, is that because we're minus a chairman at the moment, or is that an oversight, or is that a deliberate because that's going to be something else?
Through the chair, the reason those committees aren't listed are because it is already established as a section 41. The committees that are listed here are the ones that they were advisory groups or another form, and we've now made them as section 41, so technically they're a complete new committee. They've been established under that, so now they have no one on them. We would like to maintain the continuity of those committees, so this resolution is just suggesting anyone on those committees, it's quite a big task to unpick all their appointment dates, so what we're saying is just appoint them for their dates, and as their dates come up and we can work through and then line them up with their terms of reference later on.
Is there any further discussion on that? Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Worship. I'm really pleased that this report came, and I know there's been a huge amount of work that's gone into this. And I know this looks at process improvement through a legislative and statutory lens, and also considered what support the committees required, including training, which I think is really valuable. So I'm going to keep my comments to that focus, and I believe we do need to do a more important body of work, and that is to review the need and purpose for each of these committees, and where in my mind there is an overlap or confusion as to why we even have so many committees when we have an administration employed to provide advice and enact the strategic direction of this chamber. Of 2, maybe 3 committees, if a different community-driven model would be better, I think we need to consider that and completely remove the administrative burden on council, as I am not convinced the committee model is the highest and best use of administration's time and ratepayer resources. I'd like to, I would have liked to have seen that each committee every 2 years undertake a self-assessment, and I was thinking of that only because when we have at the next term of election we establish or not establish these committees, if we've undertaken a bit of a self-assessment 6 months out from the election, the new incoming council will have a better idea of the role and purpose and the performance of those committees, and then can make a really informed decision as to whether they want to establish them again or not. But that's a conversation for another day. It was a really interesting and important report, and I think it formalises what we currently have, but in my view I just think we have too many. And the most pertinent sentence in this whole report for me was on page 581, where it said, Alexandrina has one of the largest listed committees and advisory groups. So I'm supporting consistency, transparency and efficiency, training and meeting behavioural obligations, but I just query if we do need them all, and I think that's a question we haven't answered, and we have to test that with our community. So I really appreciate all this work that's gone into this, and I just hope that it maybe is the start of it, and not knowing what other committee councillor Coomans is proposing, I think it's something we need to give really, really careful consideration to. Councillor Oliver's motion about benchmarking, if you just do a quick desktop of councils in South Australia and the number of committees they have, we are indeed one of the largest committees in our sector, and there are much bigger councils with bigger communities than us. So I think we are when it comes to this, something that it needs to be done at some point in time, and it's not tonight. This is about standardising, establishing, and so I'm keeping my focus to that. But I do think we've got the burden and the administrative support that's required for this is huge, and I think it's something that we should look at in some other life, perhaps.
Is there any further discussion? I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? That is carried unanimously. We go to dot point 8. Is there a mover for dot point 8? Councillor Maidment. Seconded, Councillor Gardner. Is there any discussion relating to dot point 8? No, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? That is carried unanimously. We go to dot point 9. Is there a mover for that? Councillor Coomans. Seconder, Councillor Livingston. Is any discussion relating to that? I don't know what you're going to, you can talk about it. I don't know what you're going to change because it's all, but go ahead.
I just have a question, Your Worship. And will these be published? Like council members' forms are published? And I just wonder if the committees were comfortable and understand what this means for them.
Through the chair, I'll ask the team leader to answer that question.
So through the chair, no, it won't be published. The committee ordinary returns are treated slightly differently from council member.
Is there any further discussion on that one? If not, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. We go to dot point 10. Is a mover for that, Councillor Oliver?
May I please speak?
You're moving it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mayor, I'm sorry to do this, but I must go back to the SA Wooden Boat Festival terms of reference. They do not reflect what the committee agreed. I believe that my understanding is the committee agreed that there will continue to be an independent person for the chair who will come from a separate process. It would not be, expressly would not be a member of staff or an elected member. I don't know how we revisit this, but I believe that there's clearly an error. And I think Councillor Livingston will concur.
Through the mayor, can we just pause for one moment on that? Does anyone have the page number that you're referring to? Because I would like to make sure we get that correct. Yeah. Unless 67, thank you. Through the mayor, just in response, so it says that the chairperson shall be nominated by members at the first meeting of the new term of council, and at the end, the term of serving the current chairperson or person when they hold the position becomes vacant. So what it's saying is they'll be nominated from members of your committee. Can I get the team leader, governance and risk, just to come up on that one to clarify that?
Yeah, so through the chair. Oh, sorry. Yeah, so I do recall some discussion that was had around that at the time that I attended the meeting for the Wooden Boat Festival. I know that one of the issues that was discussed in length was the current situation that the Wooden Boat Festival was in at that particular time, where they didn't have a chair, and we discussed different options at that time, and obviously said that it was a lot easier to appoint a new chair rather than having to go back out to a completely separate expressions of interest. If the committee so wishes to keep that, they're entitled to do that. It was just noted from that meeting and further correspondence that came through from administrative support for the Wooden Boat Festival that, for the sake of keeping things a lot easier, that was the way they wished to proceed.
Okay. So council have adopted the terms of reference already. What I would suggest, if the terms of reference aren't what that committee was expecting, that's something you could discuss with your committee, because committees can do a resolution to suggest a change to their terms of reference. So that is something the committee could consider and bring a recommendation back to council, and there could, if it is not what the committee wanted, the council could reconsider changing that.
Is there a seconder for it? Councillor Miller, you're seconding it?
Can I just ask a question, please? So just on the Wooden Boat Festival Committee, I just wonder, to my earlier point, if there's an opportunity at some point to make that a community-led organisation, like I think Aquafest, how that runs. I just wonder if there's a reason why it couldn't be just completely a community committee without the level of council support. I'm not proposing that happen. I just wondered if that's ever been contemplated, that it's like Aquafest or some other, it doesn't have to have council support.
Aquafest is owned by a community group. The South Australian Wooden Boat Festival is owned by council. Is there any further discussion? So we put the recommendation 10 to you. All those in favour? Against? It's carried.
Mayor Parks, could I just suggest that we've been going for 3 hours, and normally after 2 hours we have a bit of a break. Do we have 5 minutes?
I think if we make it strictly 5 minutes, because some people wander off and come back 10 minutes later. We've got a long way to go still. And I did make it clear at the beginning of the night, it's a very big agenda. Myself and 3 others are driving to Adelaide the next 2 days, doing interviews for a CEO. So we don't want to be up all night and then going through that tomorrow. So that's why I'm keen to move it on. But yeah, have a break. We'll make it, pardon me, we'll come back at 8:45. It gives a bit more than 5 minutes. Right, we start again. So 8.16 is the Community Land Management Plan 6 monthly report. There's a recommendation there with 2 dot points. Is there a mover for that? Move Councillor Oliver. Seconder, Councillor Gardner. Any discussion? If not, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? In favour? Can we all do it together? Carried unanimously. It's hard work, mate, I'll tell you. It's not that hard. 8.17 is the delegations update, and there's a recommendation there with 2 dot points. Is there a mover for that? Move Councillor Livingston. Second, Councillor Nicholson. Is any discussion relating to the delegation item? If not, I'll put that recommendation. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. 8.18 is the Local Government Finance Authority of South Australia election for the positions of representative members on the Board of Trustees. And there's a recommendation there. They're asking us to give our nomination for the 2 positions. And there are 5 candidates. I don't know if anybody's got any particular preferences amongst you. Councillor Scott.
Yes, Worship, I would move Jonathan Peach from Coorong Council. He is a country councillor, and Grant Piggott, who is I've had contact with and involvement with as one of the managers at the Royal Agricultural Society, and is now managing the Citrus Board, I think now, but is in the absence of knowing anyone else.
Yeah. I just think we're missing. I thought Grant Piggott, but Michael Sedgman is the most experienced of all of them in finance and management. But that's what my suggestion.
If we're going to have picks,
I think what we should do is we do a ballot. So we put a paper around and put your two. No, we go.
What about you adjourn for 5 minutes?
Yep. So look, we're going to run out of time. So we'll have take 5 minutes is all it should take. Leave the meeting to have an informal discussion. All in favour? Right. So you can go ahead and say you think. I told you what I thought, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, look, I agree. The most qualified, and this is a finance authority, not a farmers authority. Sedgman and Piggott would be my pick.
I'd like to echo Councillor Coogan's comments.
I thought it was important that we had a different representative rather than two city candidates. So I was going with Sedgman and Jonathan Peach. Okay.
Your Worship, I just thought maybe we might write two names on a piece of paper, and whichever name's got the most votes would be how we'd work it out. We could go around the table forever with different combinations of people. I can't.
That's what I suggested a minute ago, and then we decided we'd go into an informal discussion first. So we'll still put a bit of paper around it.
While we're informal, we could go into the ballot.
Okay. Yeah. So while we're informal, we'll do a ballot. So we'll get a piece of paper, and you please write two names on it.
Tanya can check the meeting procedures, but I'm going to read them out to build of anticipation. Sedgman, 1 vote. It's like the medal count. The secret ballot. We will tell you who the winner is then.
We'll move back into formal council procedure now. You can use.
And the winner is Jonathan Setch. I'm going to say his name wrong. My apologies. Beach. And Michael Sedgman. If we could populate their names. So what our meeting procedure says is we've now done this informally. We will populate that in the resolution, and then the mayor will seek a mover and a seconder.
So we've got up there the two names. So is there a mover? Councillor Scott. Seconder, Councillor Oliver. I doubt there's any discussion. Shouldn't be. So I'll put it to you. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. Just while Councillor Oliver was asking me, when it comes to the Local Government Association President, which will come probably next month to Council, that again comes to, in our case, we've always brought the nominations to Council, and Council voted the same as we just did on who we're going to support. So some councils, the mayor just gets delegation to do it, but we don't. So 8.19 is the Chief Executive Officer report. There's a recommendation that that report for August be received. Is there a mover, Councillor Gardner? Seconder, Councillor Miller. Are there any questions or comments relating to the CEO's report? If not, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. Now we're going to go into the Section 41 Committee and Advisory Panel Minutes and Reports. Is this 9.1, which is the report from Section 41 Audit Risk Committee policy review, grants policy and various program guidelines. Are these likely to encourage a lot of discussion? Because if not, if we are, we'll adjourn the meeting. Okay, so we'll see how we go carrying on, if you want to carry on for a little while. So you've got the recommendation there of the Audit Risk Committee and the recommendation of administration, so we'll do the two recommendations together. Is there a mover for that? Councillor Nicholson. Is the seconder? Councillor Maidman. Is there any discussion or questions relating to that? So I'll put that recommendation, there's the two recommendations. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. (9.2) is a report from the Section 41 Audit Risk Committee Policy Review, Conflict of Interest Policy and Fraud, Corruption, Misconduct and Maladministration Prevention Policy. And there's again the two recommendations of the committee and administration. We'll do them together. Is there a mover for them? Move Councillor Nicholson. Seconder, Councillor Livingston. Is there any discussion relating to that? I'll put the recommendations. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. (9.3) is a report from the Section 41 Audit Risk Committee Discretionary Rebate of Rates, and there's a recommendation of the committee and administration to put them both together. Councillor Miller, you're moving that?
Thank you, Worship. Very quick comment. Thank you so much for this report. I think this is a great, good news story that our community should know about, and I really appreciate this coming through the chamber. Thank you.
So do we have a seconder? Councillor Oliver. Any discussion? Councillor Coomans.
Just a question. There is a table with discretionary rebate of rates, and a number of organisations are listed, but it doesn't, I couldn't see where it says the percentage of rebate for those. It sort of says what they would be paying, and I forgot to write down the page, I'm sorry, but I was interested in Tubarang and Hope Forest, Yundi, Boy Scouts, Wallunga Hill, but it just has a figure for what they pay, but not what their percentage of discretion is. Was that in there or not?
Through the Mayor, it's in the column that is titled rebate percentage. It's just got a lot of words in front of it. Each one.
I've got it, yeah, thank you.
Any further discussion? I'll put the recommendations, but both the administration and the committee. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. 9.4 is a Section 41 Heritage Advisory Committee minutes of the 15th of August 2024, and there's a recommendation that we receive a note and accept the resignation. Is there a mover? Councillor Gardner. Seconder? Councillor Maidman. Is any discussion? I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. 10 is council member reports. 10.1 is the presiding member's report. Where? Not in my agenda. We haven't. That's not there. It's not there. 865, 864, 63. It's not there. No. 877. I don't have 877. I have 890. I have 891.
I think something's happened in your printer. Through the chair, I think something has happened with your printout. You're missing some pages. So the members in front of you should have page 877 is the next one. It's on the screen. So this one is for the Section 41 Climate and Emergency Environment Committee, just to receive their minutes.
So we're doing 9.5. Is there a mover that we receive that? Councillor Oliver. Seconder, Councillor Livingston. Any discussion? The recommendation, all those in favour? Against, it's carried unanimously. 9.6 is the Section 41 Southern Communities Transport Scheme Advisory Committee minutes of the 19th of June 24. Is there a mover that we accept that? Move, Councillor Gardner. Seconder, Councillor Nicholson. Any discussion? Not, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against, it's carried unanimously. I think now we go back to where the bit of the page disappeared somewhere in the printer. 10 is Council Member Report, 10.1 Presiding Member Report, which is my report for August 2024. There's a recommendation that that be received. Move, Councillor Livingston. Seconder, Councillor Oliver. Any discussion or questions relating to that report? No, so I'll put that to you. All those in favour? Against, it's carried unanimously. 10.2 is the Council Member Activity Report. Actually, there's one thing. Sorry, I must go back before I get. Just let you know, we do every year we do the Mayor's short story, and so there's Alexandrina, Yankalilla, and Victor Harbour. So the young girl that won the Alexandrina outright was a gorgeous little girl from Milang called Buffy Hammer Del Pont, and she's absolutely beautiful little girl. So congratulations to her. It was a very nice night. The pizza was excellent, and it wasn't cold, and we didn't have to wait. It's all good. So council member, we move on now. The council members' reports. Council member activity report 10.2. We've got a report from Councillor Gardner for July and August. Are there any verbal updates that really do relate to council business?
I just want to say that in my report...
Can you turn the microphone on, please? Microphone.
Oh, sorry. That Minnie and I had a photo shoot down at the beach, but I did not know I was going to have to do a video, so it was totally off the cuff, but Minnie enjoyed it.
Any others? Councillor Nicholson.
Thank you, Worship. I'd just like to let the Chamber know that I attended the LGA Roads and Works Conference on the 28th to the 30th of August. We had a presentation from the Minister for Housing and Urban Development, Nick Champion. We had presentations on low carbon roads and footpaths, an update from DIT. We talked about, there was presentations on modern levee management techniques and proactive flood mitigation, rapid community growth, and a really interesting final presentation from the former Lord Mayor of Adelaide, Stephen Yarwood, about AI and the future, which was eye-popping, to be honest. So I welcome, there was a range of other information presented as well. I found it really informative and interesting, and certainly a number of elements that I'll bring back in my work here. And I welcome any questions from anybody. I can also send some presentations where the speakers have consented for them to be shared, so please get in touch.
Any other updates, Councillor Scott?
Yes, and I apologise, I haven't, I overlooked doing my homework on this, but I attended the schools judging day at the Royal Show, as I do each year, and take a close interest in it, particularly for the schools in our area, being Eastern Fleurieu, Mount Compass and Willunga. And I say Willunga because there are kids, students in our ward that I spoke to that are going to Willunga High School. And I'll furnish the staff with a summary, but I just want to report that Strathalbyn, Eastern Fleurieu, got the champion steer of the show. And there are a lot of schools, I think there are 41 schools, 45 schools that participate at various levels. They got Mount Compass got some minor placings, I believe. I will catch up, but I really think it's appropriate that we congratulate those schools and particularly Eastern Fleurieu on that success, and trying to get a steer up to the right weight during this season is a work of art, because it's been so hard with it being so cold and feet. So I just put that in and would like acknowledgement sent to Eastern Fleurieu, please.
Any others? Councillor Livingston.
Councillor Scott and I have the Murray-Darling Association Inter-Region meeting on Friday, which we have the Shadow Minister for Water Resources and the River Murray and the Deputy Premier attending as well, with Regions 5 and 7, and we're with Region 6. I just wanted to confirm if we have a member of the executive attending.
Just double check that. We did contact them to ask because Nigel was previously nominated, so we are allowed a proxy. So if you wish, I can attend in the capacity of acting CEO. It's an online meeting, isn't it?
It is, but it is held in Murray Bridge. I think that it's really important that we have more representation from our council in Region 6, because there's a lot of decisions that are being made across the Murray-Darling Basin that are affecting our region, being at the end of the Murray, and we don't really get a voice as much. That would be great. Thank you.
Are there any others? Councillor Coomans.
Thank you, Mayor Parks. The CEO allowed me to drive to Harndorf in the end of August to attend a LGA event, which was a bus tour of the recycling and waste firms, Pete's Composting and also the Brinkley Waste and Recycling Facility. Very interesting what they do in those two places, and the question I have is, why aren't we doing it? And on the way back we had, they talked about recycling, and we had a mini bin game in the bus, and they had all these little things and you had to put them in the right bin, and surprisingly not that many members on the bus got them all right. That's it.
Any others? Is that it? Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Basham. I just want to thank Councillor Scott for acknowledging EFS winning that grand champion carcass at the Royal Adelaide Show. It was for Winston, and they were very excited because they haven't won on that level at the show, and they've been going for many years, and it's a credit to the ag teaching staff there. And just, I would also like to acknowledge the principal of EFS, because he won last week a teaching award in Canberra, a national teaching award for his leadership in pedagogies for deep learning and the Berry Street program. And that's a really significant award in education, and there were only two other, there was one other award winner from South Australia, all the rest were from interstate, so I just wanted to acknowledge that. Thank you.
That's it. So put the recommendation to you. All those in favour? Oh, sorry, we need a murmur first. Somebody to move that we, Councillor Thornton. Councillor Thornton. And Councillor Livingston seconding. Put that to you. All those in favour? Okay, so it's carried unanimously. Now we go into confidential items.
South Coast Television, your community, your voice.